Thank you.
They are the problem, Right Honorable Speaker. But let me talk. let me spare them for another day. Let me spare them for another day. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. If my memories serve me right, we released the money for that machine. Okay? Hey, Honorable, you may help me. We released money for that machine. I think the issue was on, the last time I heard was on the building, where to put it, but the money was appropriated and even released. If my memory can serve me right. Former Chair, Health Committee.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. For starters, we call it the PET project, not a PET machine. Because a project means you have the housing, the infrastructure, and then the machine. So at Cancer Institute, what they are first constructing is the housing, and that costs a lot of money. The size of the wall is about 2 meters thick before you're granted permission by Atomic Energy Council to install the machine. So it is work in progress, but total cost is about 200 billion shillings. So every financial year we have been requesting for between 40 to 60 billion. Last year no money was released for the last 2 financial years. So work has stalled. Thank you.
Is it on the building or on the machine? Didn't we pay for the machine? Didn't we order?
On the building.
Yeah, but the machine, didn't we order?
No, Right Honorable Speaker, we can only order for the machine when the building has reached a certain level of completion. Then you place an order to Siemens, they come, they inspect, and design the machine to fit into the building.
Okay.
So it is a pet project for clarity. Thank you.
Let the Minister for Health, as we are debating, come and update us, because I remember there is a time we released the money for the machine itself, you know? So, yeah, okay. Because now we want to know whether the gap is on the building alone and the one of the machine being safe. Honorable Mwijuche.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I have crossed and patiently listened the chairman and Honorable Semju, and you realize the paradox that unfunded, that the priorities are not funded, and that's why they are called unfunded priorities, and that the less priority activities are funded. And for me, that is a paradox. However, Right Honorable Speaker, I would want clarification on money to the DRC payment, because it was not well explained, and so I would want the Attorney General or Honorable Semju to explain exactly why are we paying money to DRC, because it didn't come out clearly. 2, Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Semju talked about areas. Right Honorable Speaker, you recall the issue of tea seedlings. We have areas for tea seedlings. The Honorable Minister came here and asked suppliers to supply and be paid later. He had given them 1 year. It is now 4 years. The suppliers are suffering, specifically in Greater Ushenyi, the tea suppliers, and I'm sure the Speaker, you know this very well, because when the Minister came here, you were in the chair. 2, I'm also concerned about the Wizbwera Bweju Kawohe Road. I can see the MPs from Barara, Shema, and Bweju, but this has been a priority road in all the national development plans. Actually, that road was pledged in 1989. It is now 2025. Of course, the Minister for Finance knows about this road. It has been a priority in the Development Plan 3. I really want to understand, from 1 to 4 now, I want to understand what the problem is as we continue to plan for this country. Right Honorable Speaker, the issue of a draft budget. I don't want to go back to what has been dealt with, but when we were dealing with the plan that, the budget that was returned, the Minister for ICT said that Parliament cannot change anything in our budget. they can only show displeasure. So as I suggest now, I want to get commitment from government that our recommendations are going to be considered. We are not only showing displeasure, because the minister was here. He said, no, you MPs can only show your displeasure, but we don't have to take your recommendations. So as we plan in this budget, as we recommend, the Prime Minister is here, I want to know, are we just speaking for purposes of speaking, or shall our recommendations be considered? Finally, Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of clothes that was talked about, shoes, slippers, sponges, where is this money going? Who are we buying these clothes for? Because it was alluded to by the Honorable Semuju that is a budget for that. I want to know, who are we buying slippers, shoes, sponges, handkerchiefs? In this budget, who is consuming this money? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think it is very, very important, because like last time I was supposed saying, my beautiful suit, you buy it for me. In fact, I had to call my executive secretary, ask, but man, I'm being attacked right and center, that there is a budget to buy me good shoes, and I'm suffering, borrowing from the circle to buy a suit. Yes, why is this? Because I've never received a coin to buy me anything apart from this gown and this wig, which is always itching me, that they bought for me. The rest, I've never, So until they clarified that this is money that goes to security, to protocol, because your protocol people have to be looking good before other, and I'm told it's a norm in other parliaments all over, that there are people who must be looked after to look presentable beyond what we can provide. But if there is anything, if anyone knows that there is any money to buy for me a suit, a shirt, any clothes, and the speaker, and it is attributed to us personally, I authorize that money to be removed. I'm not getting anything. At least I have enough to make me survive. If I fail, I will borrow from Anton Akor. He can help me with his suit. I hope I can fit in it. Yeah. Honorable Joel is my size. Now, honorable colleagues, I wanted, yes, I'm on the list, another list. I wanted to call honorables, okay? But as I call her, because she's also on the list, she's a member, wanted to submit. But as I call her, you will allow me to suspend debate for just a few minutes. We receive a statement which you can comment on maybe also when we are continuing with the debate. Yesterday, we asked the Minister of Finance to come and explain on the issue of ex gratia for LC leaders, our councillors and all that. And it's a very short statement, so he can present it and then we continue with the debate. Correct? Next item.
Statement on the status of payment of ex gratia and honoraria to local government councillors.
Honourable Minister for Finance.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, during the sitting held yesterday, Wednesday, 29th January 2025, I was requested to provide a statement today on the payment of ex gratia and honoraria to local government councillors. For the financial year 2024-25, the budget allocation for ex gratia and honoraria is shilling 34.2 billion and 10.6 billion respectively. And this is detailed in Annex 1. This budget was based on submissions from the Ministry of Local Government then. Right, Honorable Speaker, the funds for ex gratia and honoraria are released on a quarterly basis, along with other local government grants. To date, 25.6 billion shillings for ex gratia and 8 billion shillings for honoraria have been released, and this is shown in Annex 1, and we shall go there later. It is therefore the responsibility of the respective accounting officers to ensure timely payment to the beneficiary councillors. The above notwithstanding, my ministry has received several requests for additional funding to cover arrears for ex gratia and honoraria. These arrears have arisen due to the following. Number one, the conduct of elections in new administrative units that had not yet been operationalized. Number two, the amendments to the Local Government Act, which increased the number of direct councillors per sub-county to include positions for women councillors. Right, Honorable Speaker, to address this, the Ministry of Local Government was advised to consolidate all arrears related to ex gratia and honoraria. As a result, a schedule amounting to shillings 15.4 billion, as shown in Annex 2, was submitted for consideration. This arrears schedule is currently under audit by the Internal Auditor General to guide the arrears budget for the respective local governments in financial year 2025-2026. Before I submit, Right Honorable Speaker, Annex 1 are the budgets and releases for ex gratia and honoraria for financial year 2024-2025. And according to that budget, the releases do not appear to vary significantly from what was budgeted. The list is there for all the respective votes. It's available on screen, and I don't think that time would allow me to go through each and everything. So it's already uploaded. Right, Honorable Speaker, allow me to submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Yeah, Honorable Soke, and do your submission. If you want to make any comment on this, you make it.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. It's not true that all the local government administrative units serve. I'll give an example of Fort Portal Tourism City. They demand a lot of money, and if there is proof that they have been paid up to date, it can be provided. But I wanted to comment and help ourselves, because I had something burning that the local governments are not completing the works, especially construction of schools and health centers. Right Honorable Speaker and members, the programs dictate to us, for example, the Uganda Intergovernmental Fiscal Transfers, the UGIFT, dictates that the tenders or procurements are done by the mother ministries at the headquarters. So the schools that benefit from UGIFT for construction of seed schools, their procurements are done by the Ministry of Education and Sports. Likewise, the health centers done by the Ministry of Health. We have complained, and we think the ministries are in progress to discuss with the donors to adjust on these conditions. Because, Right Honorable Speaker, there is hybrid procurement, and you find someone is allocated 6 schools, like the one who is building in Intoroko, is the one building in Bundubujo, building in Kiombia in Bunyangabu, building in Kabarole in Kasenda. So he has 5 schools, and he doesn't have the capacity. So if you are not forceful, he will not complete. I was, and mine is completed, but I have forwarded him for blacklisting. So it's not our fault, but Right Honorable Speaker, we have where, as Minister of Local Government, have also have our own self-inflicted wounds, but in the changes we are making in the Act, we have proposed that all the headquarters be the same design and the same amount. I'll give an example of Utaleja. When we advanced them 200 million, they made the foundation as big as this parliamentary building. And 2 days they were crying the money is not enough. So understand us, we are fighting tooth and nail to make sure that there is flexibility in the conditions from the donors. I thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. We are going to break off for lunch, for 30 minutes lunch. So we return here at 2:35 exactly. House suspended for 30 minutes.
Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, that was for the structures which are incomplete, but there are some structures which they have not started on, and some budgets had been allocated. An example is Hoima Regional Referral Hospital. They made a budget of constructing an MSH complex worth 33.6 billion in the year 2023-2024. What was released was 1.15 billion, which could not start even the foundation. What happened? The contractor had to demolish the existing wards. The pediatric ward, maternity ward, kangaroo ward. And the patients, the mothers, were taken to an eye clinic where they are congested. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, let's take this as a priority. What we did in this budget, we had put around 13.6 trillion so that we can be able to construct at least the ground, second, and third floor, because the floor is six floors.
Trillion or
billions. Right Honorable Speaker, they are talked about the drugs good. They have reinstated the 100 billion, but also there is a cut on UBTS. Members are complaining that there is no blood in the hospitals. But even what we are collecting was not enough. But we have gone ahead again to cut the budget. Now blood is going to be more scarce in the next coming financial year. And you know, this is the time for campaigns and all that. So, Right Honourable Speaker, those are key, among others. If you look at the unfunded priorities in our sector, there are too many. And you have the report, you can be able to read it. They talked about also, there is also, I talk about utility bills. You know, when you construct a hospital, when you bring a new equipment, you are constructing oxygen plants, they consume a lot of electricity. If you go to all the facilities, all the regional hospitals, they have a very big electricity bills, spending 700, 600, 500. That's one speaker. When they're putting these other buildings or infrastructure equipment, they also put a budget for utilities. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you construct a facility, it will remain there but without being used. Right one speaker, I think there are so many things, but in interest of time, I'll stop there. But
Thank you. Honorable Donald Katarua, Honorable Emmanuel Ongso.
Right Honorable Speaker, I have to declare that I'm a member of Budget Committee and I'm conflicted.
No, yeah. So,
And,
sorry, I requested those who wanted to submit.
Okay.
So, and I don't know why you wrote. Honorable Emmanuel Ongso, I'm still on my list. People who were here at 10 registered themselves. They are the ones I must start with. So if you're
thank
not
you,
on my
Right Honourable
list,
Speaker.
if you don't register, kind of sit. Don't rob me by looking at me, by trying to be good. Okay?
Right Honourable Speaker, I know that the first issue I'm starting with was touched indirectly, but I want to talk about specifically this financial year, not the financial year coming. It came out clearly from the report that the next financial year we have a theme, and after the theme we have strategies, and from the strategies then we have allocations, and it came out very clearly that some of the allocation is not consistent with the strategies. And I'm wondering now, what is going to happen? You are allocating funds to what if they are not consistent with the strategies which have come out? That is one. Two is the area of supplementary budgets. And for the supplementary budget, one aspect which for me is disturbing is that even when they have brought the supplementary budgets here and is approved, a number of times the amounts are not released to the entities, and you have brought the supplementary budget yourself as Ministry of Finance, and then you are not releasing it. What does that mean? And then one aspect also of the supplementary budgets, one time I asked Minister of Finance, if you study the trend of the supplementaries, where are the money over the years? Where are the monies going? Where are the monies being cut? And the minister told me openly, I'm not going to answer. And that tells you something. Then, Right Honourable Speaker, in the budget which we have proposed, when we were having a statement from the minister about the celebration of NRM Day, one thing which came out clearly was that we are very happy because now we have connected border to border with tarmac. But we have two border points within Greater Nebi which are very essential to us. That is Goli and Padea. They are not connected. I'm bringing this point specifically for Goli because recently when the president was in Nebi, at least he promised that the section from Nebi town to Goli would be looked at. We have been talking about this road from Nebi to Goli to Paida to Zombo up to Vora. But for this one section, which is from Nebi town to Goli, at least the president talked about it, and I would have expected that in this budget it would be there, and it is not there. Finally, Right Honourable Speaker, speaking about the free primary and secondary education, we have been battling with the issue of capitation grant for these schools. In primary, it is about 6,000 per child per term. And you can imagine, now we are talking about the free primary. What are we talking about? If we are not going to be providing or increasing capitation grant to schools per child, what does it mean? And we have also started talking about feeding. Members, we are also already hearing cycles about feeding in schools. What do we mean? If we are not going to be providing budgets for this, I mean, we shouldn't be talking about this. At one point, I even told the minister that this issue of free primary and secondary education, don't cross-patch with it, because parents have started getting used to making a little bit of contribution, and for us, we are seeing the results. If now we are saying it has to be free, and you are not increasing capitation grant, please, we need to be serious about what we are talking about. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Narima, Kaya Christine, Balimwezo, Atkins, Isingoma, Mwijite.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we continue to discuss the budget framework paper, it clearly indicates several of these gaps, and could we know clearly? Because as we're considering in this very budget framework paper in the Committee of Public Service and Local Government, we kept on asking the Minister of Public Service that as we commence rationalization, we really put to you that why are we planning for RAPEX and destabilizing some other people, yet we haven't provided them for how they are going to have their living. As we talk today, you realize that the committee again has brought it well, that out of the 74 billion that was planned earlier only, it wasn't fully covered. And up to this day, we still have 44 billion pending. But matters were even made worse when the Solicitor General could highlight more that it's not even 74. It's even far more. It's now 196 billion. Let's think of people who have been displaced from their jobs. Their jobs no longer exist, but now they don't even have any living. Can we consider those Ugandans and prioritize? Can we also have the Finance Minister committing that by the time we shall consider the budget, at least these people will have halfway of their compensation and their way of living will be commenced on. Mr. Speaker, some time back when we had the calamity of the Chitezi landfill, we emphasized that let compensation be done to those people who were displaced. But it's very unfortunate, even up to this hour, the compensation is part of what is not going to be prioritized. Yes, people out there, even when they are being removed from that tent, they were told in a few months' time, their compensation is going to be there. Can we get an explanation of how they'll also be catered for? And finally, the matter of health. We have an international hospital. We have a hospital referral that is in Entebbe, that is next to an international airport. It's at 16% staffing levels. Not once, not twice. Ministry of Health has come here, and now it shows us the general burden of these referral hospitals as far as staffing is concerned. It is a total of 28.8 billion. Can we be fair and use our appropriation role and strength to see that now when it comes to the budget, at least we shall stand as far as health is concerned and ensure that the 28.8 billion is got from those wasted resources, and see at least so that one Ugandan can say, yes, Parliament stood for us. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kaya Christine.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, my first observation is on the issuance of the Certificate of Climate Change Compliance. Right Honorable Speaker, they have emphasized Section 30B of the Climate Change Act of 2021 and Part 6A. but written Part 6B, which emphasizes the need to assess and evaluate the different programs. Right Honorable Speaker, we do not have regulations, and we are wondering what the minister and that is minister from the planning used. What rationale did you use to measure? Actually, the measurement is just on funding. This program provided for this money, just on the amount of funding, and there is nothing on actions. In other words, the allocation of marks is baseless. We don't have regulations in place. So, Right Honorable Speaker, to me, I would not take it that that is the right certificate. But, Right Honorable Speaker, the effect of climate change is increasing to Ugandans. But, according to the assessment, we scored 53. It is a serious decline from 60 of last financial year. But, the assessment is looking at the only 6 programs that scored above 50. And the 12 remaining programs scored below 50. And I'm wondering, isn't this the same assessment that is applied to people who are very rich, who determine that Ugandans are in the middle income when we are poor? So why don't we look at the average performance of the programs? If, for example, we have more than 50 of the programs scoring 50 and above, that is when the certificate would be relevant. Otherwise, the 6 sharing the marks with the rest of the 18 is really very low. Right Honorable Speaker, Article 29 of our Climate Change Act requires integration of climate change in the education curriculum. Right Honorable Speaker, you find that this ministry is even scoring less than 50. And we are wondering, we request that we take part in the development of the curriculum such that the efforts are embedded in all ministries. My other issue is on the contingency fund, Right Honorable Speaker. It is already stated in the public finance management that 0.05% of the previous financial budget will go to contingency funding. But he already raised it out that the 2 documents are not in line. The current budget framework papers contingency funding is less than 0.05 of the previous budget, meaning that the proposed budget is not in line and should be revised. Right Honorable Speaker, the issue of compliance with gender and equity is a serious one. You can imagine, we would like agro-industrialization to bring miracles to Uganda, but its performance in terms of gender, equity, and responsiveness is very low. That is why we propose 2 feet and then go behind 5 feet. Right Honorable Speaker, this is very important for our people, most of our people, to benefit, because this is where you're putting money. And the emphasis on marketing, Right Honorable Speaker, is missing. Marketing is what ensures us with the money in our pockets. Right Honorable Speaker, our people are very poor with nothing in the pockets. This business of value addition, production, then afterwards somebody is asking what to sell and ends with something in the pocket. Right Honorable Speaker, marketing efforts are missing in our budget framework paper. And I am calling on us to review and incorporate strategies for improving our market. Right Honorable Speaker, budget priorities are in line with the NDP4, but the targets are not in line. And it was listed, it was noted by him. We measure targets. We don't measure processes and procedures. So if we are going by target and the implication of the budget on our people, we should have targets in our national development plan, complying with the targets in the what? In the budget, in the budget framework paper.
Thank you, Honorable Mwezo.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. On human capital development, Uganda government policy is to establish at least one primary school per parish and one secondary school for every sub-county. Right Honorable Speaker, we in the urban districts, we are suffering a lot. You find a school, I mean one school in a division, for instance. I will give you a typical example of Nakawa division with over 600,000 people, with only one secondary school, Luzira SS, whose capacity is a mere 3,200. So you find that majority of the people drop out because of lack of infrastructure, particularly in schools. Right Honorable Speaker, Minister of Education some time back told us that 1.88 million people start primary one. 7 years down the road, only 740 seats for PLE, meaning that over 1.1 million drop out before completing primary 7. We are seated on a time bomb, but there is also information that we have ghost students and that government loses a lot of money in ghost students. It's my prayer that before we address our budget, we should have an investigation into the ghost students that we have. Right Honorable, I wish to appreciate Honorable Semuju for the good minority report. The domestic areas that accrue an interest that is quite big. Recently, the Minister of Works told us that we lose over 280 million every day as a result of interest accrued from supplies given to UNRWA. So 380 million every day. It's quite big and it's a big loss. So I pray that we do away with areas. Let us pay the areas and move on well. Right Honorable Speaker, there has been also resistance with government officials to shift from the program-based budgeting. Many officials don't understand the program-based budgeting, and we are losing a lot of resources, including time. And the performance of our budgets are not good because people do not understand the program-based budgeting process. The other one is the Kitezi decommissioning. It's unfortunate that we lost a number of lives in the Kitezi human-induced saga. But again, government has not included it as a priority. We lost lives. It will be very bad for us to have such an occurrence again, and it will be blamed on us. So I pray that we deal with Kitezi decommissioning, but also deal with better solid waste management in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Watkins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will make a submission that is clustered under two categories. Category number one, we look at the community where I come from, Kasese as a community. Mr. Speaker, sir, every financial year, this government has got a song. And the song is about the Kasese airstrip being elevated to an international airport. Another song during budgetary time is reviving the railway line from Kasese up to the end. And then having a university, clean, safe drinking water, and also water for production. Reviving Kalembe mines, that's for copper, and a cobalt in Kasese town, chalk in a Mohocha, and a salt in a Katwe. And then the land disputes, the electric wire. Mr. Speaker, sir, we got what we call a master plan. And General Sully was kind enough to listen to the president's assignment. He went to Kasese, Mr. Speaker, sir, and spent 6 long months. The leaders interacted with him. And every time we remind the president, he begins just singling each and every one of us and remind us, but you MPs, it's you that are in charge of appropriation. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a budgetary season. I'll ask colleagues in this house, my honorable brothers and my honorable sisters, that we as consistent leaders gonna bring this master plan that has been endorsed by both the leadership of this house and also the president. And I'll put it to the Ministry of Finance, self-funding. And that's why the people of Kasese sent us here. Now, the issue of water, if I can pick one item, is not restricted to the Kasese people. Mr. Speaker, sir, it pains me seeing our fellow citizens drinking from collective centers on the tarmac roads. The potholes have become collecting points for drinking water. And yet we, in the same country, we got communities that have clean, safe drinking water for grazing animals, for animals. I think if we can find money to provide clean, safe drinking water for animals, it should be the same parliament. They should find the urgency and need to provide water for fellow citizens. I think this is not too much, Mr. Speaker. You as our leader, Mr. Speaker, I'm very sure you are paying too. That every time, can we call this budget and say, clean, safe drinking water to all Ugandans, this particular budget. As I said, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to be accused as somebody who preaches about water drinking and then ends up drinking wine. Because when we come to the Minister for Finance, we say, where do we get the money? Can we begin with ourselves? And this is how I want to propose, Mr. Speaker, sir. According to the attorney, to the Auditor General, every month, Mr. Speaker, we pay $900 million for Kingdom premises. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to begin from there. You allocated me an office, which is as big as a conference room or a bedroom. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we can find money to support our teachers by good pay, our doctors, and then say, can we vacate Kingdom Hall? I'm ready to have my office petitioned to accommodate so that we can save as Parliament $900 million, and that can go to finance for reallocation to support our fellow citizens. That's where I want to begin from, Mr. Speaker, saying I'm ready. You can make it an open office, and I'm ready to share with any one of the members, but we have to lead the way. We can't just continue blaming, wasteful expenditure on the president. Let's begin just right here in the House.
Thank you. Honorable Singoma.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker.
I just, before Honorable Singoma, I just need to make clarification, honorable colleagues, that offices which we rent for you are not for wasteful expenditure. It's up to how you use that office. Because you meet your constituents. In fact, in other countries, you even have researchers. You don't even have one office. They even rent for you, even in your constituency. Okay? Here, we are looking for money to get researchers for you, to facilitate you more. So, but we are trying to ensure that by having our offices across here, so that we stop renting. And the president is supporting us in that move. Honorable Isingoma.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, once again. I also join colleagues to thank the Chair for Budget and Honorable Semuju Nganda for very good reports they have presented to us in this House. Right Honorable Speaker, I had two issues, but one has been ably handled by Honorable Sarah Opendi, so I will go straight to the second one. And Right Honorable Speaker, my second issue, which is now the first, is the matter to do with the position emission tomography machine, abbreviated as PET or PET machine. Right Honorable Speaker, the consistent and persistent failure of our government to purchase this machine, which is even here is indicated as among the funding gaps, is so painful and unfortunate. Right Honorable Speaker, this machine, the PET machine, is part of the nuclear medicine, which is very crucial, actually critical, in the treatment of various cancers, in their diagnosis and treatment of various cancers. We don't have it in this country, and since we came in this House, the 11th Parliament, we have consistently sung about this machine. In East Africa, this machine is only in Nairobi, where a round costs $1,500, just one round. The cheapest country in this region is actually South Africa, but most people, I think, go to India, where it is even much cheaper. Right Honorable Speaker, the main reason why we have failed to buy this machine is because the crème de la crème of this country do not depend on it. When they are affected, most of them are flown to hospitals in USA, in Germany, in Italy, and those who are lower in the pecking order find their way maybe in India and so on and so forth. It is so sad that we continue to sing about this machine, yet everybody knows that it is so vital for the treatment and and management of cancer patients, who are so many in this country. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I could go on and go on and go on talking about this machine. I think let me just stop here. I hope the message has been taken. I'm seeing the two ministers of finance here looking at me. I hope they have captured this, and because they are the problem.
Okay, the president returned the bill, exercised his power under the Constitution to return a bill, and with a justification, because it is required under the law that once he returns, he must explain why. So the returned bill was processed, and a decision was made by this House. If I start now segregating and all that, but since I had allowed the motion, I'm going to put a question on the motion. That, please, okay, please, that Parliament is adjourned so that the President's letter is first, debate is adjourned so that the President's letter is first debated. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. I've had a lot of, I've had a very heavy aye, but around 2 or 3 with a lot of nays. So the nays have it. That is settled. Attorney General responded to law.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for your wise guidance. One, Lope is correct that Section 9(3) of the Public Finance Management Act requires the Minister of Finance to prepare a budget framework paper which shall be consistent with the National Development Plan and fiscal responsibility. The choice of words in that section is actually quite telling, because the Parliament did not write a law which said that National Development Plan and the budget will be the same. So page 282 of the Fourth National Development Plan clearly states the overall cost of the plan for the functions in the different years. And I can see here a figure of 67 billion. What Honorable Semuju was referring to is a figure that relates to page 280, which relates to the overall cost plan, including private sector investment. So then, yes, I'm reading it here. Page 280 has 92 trillion, which is a figure which includes private sector investment. Page 282 has a figure of 67 trillion, which does not include private sector investment. Now, this plan is what government aspires to achieve. The resource envelope has shown us that we have only 57 we can bring. But when they say consistent with the National Development Plan, it is not talking about consistency with numbers. It's talking about consistency with plan, aspirations, and the expectations. So, Right Honorable Chair, Right Honorable Speaker, what we need to be doing here now as Parliament is to look at the National Development Plan, look at the priorities set out therein, compare it with the budget framework paper, and therefore guide government that when we look at the National Development Plan, we may need to lower our expectations in this year, but also plan for the next year. So I don't see any inconsistency. I beg to submit. Thank you.
Counsel, senior counsel. Yeah, he's senior to me. He qualified as a lawyer way before I did. Do clarify this, because let me read to you the law verbatim, section 9(3). The minister shall, the law is saying shall, for each financial year, prepare a budget framework paper which shall be consistent with the National Development Plan and with the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. The law is saying shall. It is not suggestory. But two, when you say that it does not mean consistency with the figures, I thought the National Development Plan, the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility, has got figures for a reason. They are not irrelevant. And so you should be operating in that regard. And that's why there's a concern that the National Development Plan ought to be passed way before you bring the National Budget Framework paper, so that we are following. What you seem to say is that the figures don't matter, and all the other elaborative issues in the NDP and the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. So what is the law then saying? Because the law is commanding and saying shall.
First of all, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I did not say the figures are not relevant. That is first. So the figures in the plan are relevant. But a plan is an aspiration. So you set the plan and say, I would like to do this in the following 5 years. But if the law anticipated that once you make the plan, you must stick to it, then it would not require us to make another document for that period. We could as well just implement the National Development Plan. But we implement it using the budget. And the budget requires you to look at your circumstances at the time you're preparing the budget. At the time when you're preparing the plan, you have aspiration. But the realities of today are that we only have 57 trillion. If it is the wisdom of Parliament that since the figure of 57 which we have in the budget is not consistent with what we have in the National Development Plan. Therefore, we can't move. I don't think that's what the framers of the Constitution of the law were saying. But when they say consistency with the plan, it is what do you look to do? And in this plan, we look to do agro-processing, minerals, tourism, and science. So what we should be examining now is that with our resource envelope reduced from 67 to 57, how do we meet those prices? So it's the same. So the law is not irrelevant. What we are saying is that the reality that we have today is 57, the plan is 67. And the question before Parliament, what do we do then?
Thank you. Now, colleagues, just let's move, okay? Yeah, because once we go into those strict interpretations, we shall find ourselves not even moving. But also, I think I read 1 or 2 judgments where they were talking about SHAR. Where SHAR is mandatory, there is a sanction. Where there is no sanction, you have a room. It's just directed. So let's move with the debate. And we had started moving. We had gone to Honorable Cherangat Solomon.
Mr. Speaker, procedure. Procedure, Mr. Speaker, procedure. Procedure. Mr. Speaker, procedure.
Oh, no, don't switch on the microphone, Honorable. That's Honorable Nandara.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you so much for this chance. Before I raise the procedure issue, a budget is the expected income and expenditure. So it's just expected. And sometimes you can overestimate, you can underestimate. So, but I also want to refer to Section 9 of the Public Finance Management Act, so that I can maybe assist the Attorney General or the Minister of Finance. It says, under subsection 9.1, each accounting officer shall, in consultation with the relevant stakeholders, prepare a budget framework paper for the vote, taking into consideration balanced development, gender and equity, responsiveness, and I shall submit the budget paper, submit the budget framework paper to the minister. Mr. Speaker, each accounting officer must do that. And when it's being done, of course it will consider many issues. Now, in the wisdom, even the same act, if you look at the definition of a budget, which I want to use so that I can make a few clarifications, maybe I take a few clarifications. It defines a budget. It is the budget means the process by which government sets levels to efficiently collect revenue and allocate the spending of the resources among all sectors to meet national objectives. So, Mr. Speaker, the government set the planning was 67 trillion, but in the wisdom of the government, it has said the revenue will be 57 trillion. And that is a variance already. Of course, which the minister will explain that maybe we're not, what we're expecting, we're not going to get. It's a variance. But if it was more, I think that's when we would have raised a very big issue now. You set a budget for 67 trillion. Now you're above 67, but you are not explaining what's the difference in this context. So why I'm raising this is that we as Parliament should be now querying the issues. Did every accounting officer prepare the budget framework paper according to what the law says? That's the query we should. The rest, which would be answered in the Treasury Memorandum, again under section, I think 15 something. Let me get it clear so that I put this somewhere. Under section that when you're sending this budget, you should attach the Treasury Memorandum, how you have answered the issues of the office
which the Auditor General raised. I'm just trying. Just give me a minute. I'll get it, Mr. Speaker.
No, that's yeah.
So now, Mr. Speaker.
That's enough.
So is it
Just continue with procedure. Continue.
Mr.
with
Speaker,
procedure.
I want.
Please, Honorable, is not on record. Continue with procedure.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The issue I was trying to put across is that, but Mr. Speaker, procedures.
That's why I'm allowing you to continue, but he's attracting you. I don't know what is so attractive that you're.
But
that it is
I want
distracting you.
you raise the order to me when we're out in the corridor.
No, not granted.
Yes, because Madam, Mr. Speaker, I think again I want you to take such senior members for training, because procedure is.
Now see where you've gone also, senior.
So, Mr. Speaker, what are the procedures I was raising? Is it procedure right for us to debate that the amount of the money which is in the National Development Plan, which is 6 or 7 trillion, should be exactly the same with the amount in the budget framework? Yet the person responsible for the budget has clearly stated that the maximum he can raise is 57 trillion. And he has a room, if he gets more, to come here to adjust with the adjustment. Or he has room even to come back here to reduce. Are we doing it procedure right?
Now, Honorable colleagues, you see our submissions. In our submissions, we are choosing the ministry of not complying with the NDP4 by not raising a budget that meets the figure. But then, in our recommendations, both minority and the majority were saying you've been bringing a budget, okay, estimates, whose figure, whose financing you can't raise. You see the contradiction? We are choosing them of bringing a budget whose resource envelope we cannot raise. Then we are saying, NDP4, you're not compliant. I think what is important is for us to make our recommendations, clear. In the end, we shall go with our recommendations, Honorable. And it will be up to you how you vote on your recommendations. So let's allow people to debate, because we are going to rotate around these issues and will not finish. Honorable Cherangat, really, I've received enough procedure, I've received enough what, now let's debate.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the chair of the committee for the report. However, Right Honorable Speaker, my attention was drawn in the details of the Committee of Agriculture. Colleagues, we all know that agriculture is the backbone of this country, of our economy, and we need, actually, it is my opinion that we need to focus on agriculture, much of it. Because, to be honest, if we improve on the agriculture sector in this country, Honorable Speaker, all people will get the money that they want in their pockets. For example, in this country, Right Honorable Speaker, much of the land that has the rainfall that is reliable is densely populated. Elgon sub-region is a classic example, Right Honorable Speaker. In Elgon sub-region, where there is a lot of rain, you hardly get a person with 5 acres of land. And that means a person has to farm for only his domestic use. And if he can just work for his domestic use, that means he will not get the money in his pocket as the government suggests. I therefore suggest, Right Honorable Speaker, that in our lower belts, for example, in the lower belt of Sabay sub-region, there is a very big chunk of land which is very good for cultivation, and it can allow us have a lot of production for food. And therefore, the only problem that is they don't have the reliable rainfall. We therefore need to have an enabler, and that is water for production. When I checked what they were saying, There is nowhere where they have said that we need to have water for production. I would therefore propose that in the agricultural sector, we put something to do with water for production so that we can increase the production of our food capacity in this country. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Sarah Pendi, then Honorable Museven William.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the committee for its report. However, Right Honorable Speaker, it is disturbing. I know we have already discussed the issue of the 10.3 trillion shortfall in the budget compared to the NDP. But Right Honorable Speaker, when you look at this budget and specifically the minority report, allow me to thank Honorable Semoju for his minority report. There are areas that we can actually do away with and focus on areas that actually affect the population, Right Honorable Speaker. There was a slogan, Kisanja kuna mchezo, Right Honorable Speaker. I still want to implore government to actually get back to that and stop the issue of mchezo, Right Honorable Speaker. Because at the end of the day, the people that actually sustain us, the ordinary person that pays taxes, does not benefit. When you look at funding to the health sector, Right Honorable Speaker, there is a lot of, there is a funding gap in medicines, there is a funding gap in upgrading of health facilities from Health Center 2 to Health Center 3. We still have sub-counties without Health Center 3s. We still have sub-counties without Health Center 4s. I was seated there, Right Honorable Speaker, a mother has passed on and is being buried now today because of lack of access, timely access to services, Right Honorable Speaker. Sub-counties where people have to move long distances. When a mother is referred to another higher facility where there is a doctor and a theater, and there are no ambulances, Right Honorable Speaker. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I want to request the executive that this is within your power. Let us do away with some of these wasteful expenditures. Right Honorable Speaker, I am paid by a taxpayer. I am smartly dressed. Does the taxpayer have to again spend on me to dress me? I believe that budget for dressing, whoever is benefiting from that budget, let us limit it to the president, Right Honorable Speaker, and all the other beneficiaries. I think the 132 billion can be spent on other areas, Right Honorable Speaker. When you look at the funding gap, Right Honorable Speaker, in the education sector, this issue of the new curriculum, Right Honorable Speaker, we are going to have a challenge. We are going to have results released, and you'll be shocked at how many children, at the performance specifically in the up-country schools. There is a funding gap of 12 billion. Can we prioritize that, Right Honorable Speaker, and ensure that we have the teachers and the children actually learn and understand this curriculum so that they can be able to also benefit and move on with their education and not drop out of school. We are aware, Right Honorable Speaker, that we have a challenge with the vocational training in this country. It still remains expensive, and majority who are in the rural schools dropping out at senior 4 would actually go to vocational schools or technical schools, but they cannot do this because it is expensive. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I want to request, moving away from that, Right Honorable Speaker, when you look at the infrastructure, that sector, we have a funding gap for the meter gauge. We have grappled with this. So GEA was actually working on this meter gauge railway line from Tororo all the way to northern Uganda. So GEA pulled out because government failed to fulfill its part. We had to procure a new contractor. And now in procuring a new contractor, there is still a funding gap of 44 billion shillings. We rely so much on road transport, and it is becoming costly because, Right Honorable Speaker, when you look at the trucks that move from Malaba to northern Uganda via Tororo, there are so many on the road, and yet we do not even have enough funds to maintain the roads. We have talked of expanding the road to at least even 4 lanes, Right Honorable Speaker. The eastern route, if you move now, from here there is traffic jam all the way to Iganga. It is after Iganga that you are a bit free and you can move. So Right Honorable Speaker, over-reliance on the road sector is a challenge. Can we prioritize and ensure that the goods that come to this country move via rail? 44 billion shillings. If I look at some other wasteful expenditures, like the ones I have seen, we can actually ensure that these funds are availed so that that meter gauge railway line can actually be worked on. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to move on to the issue of rationalization. We sat here and we said, can we stagger? Then we were told, no, it must be immediate. We had said agencies like UNRWA, I don't know which other one. Let us give them at least a year or 2, and then we can rationalize. We said no here, and the agencies were rationalized. Now, seeing a gap of 169 billion to pay UNRWA workers, Uganda Road Fund, and I'm sure others, there is that gap, Right Honorable Speaker, and that is their package. People are now confused. They are not working. If you go to most of our UNRWA stations up country, the staff, there is only one staff, and people are seated. Can we pay these people their money, because we are the ones that took decision, and this was a government position? So, Honorable Minister of Finance, I want to request that the executive prioritizes that, because we had you loud and clear, and we had to act based on what you told us. Right Honorable Speaker, the other one, can I complete on the issue of domestic areas? It pains me, Right Honorable Speaker, that people supply or do work for this government, and at the end of the day, 3 years, 4 years down the road, people are not paid. Businesses have collapsed, Right Honorable Speaker. Can we ensure that we prioritize in this budget? You can't put a mere 200 billion that may be paying just one supplier or one contractor. Yet, what is outstanding is it's about 5-point-something billion, because the other money was to Bank of Uganda, which, according to the committee report, has already been catered for. The Auditor General annually has raised this as an issue. Can we prioritize the issue of domestic areas so that people can continue their businesses? Let us be kind to Ugandans.
Thank you. Honorable Museveni.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm concerned with the domestic areas also. So many Ugandans, they get contracts and they do government work. But most of them, they get loans and they are not paid in time. They end up losing property to commercial banks. Most of them, they have gone out of business. And they bother us, especially like at a with the local governments. You find people have completed work. Others have done work partially. They are being pressurized to complete it. So someone who is now financing a loan with a bank and is doing that work will end up doing shoulder work. Would you urge the ministry to say how they can assist these Ugandans? These are Ugandans. Most of them are purely Ugandans who are supposed to also to be elevated, who are supposed to be successful, and they be at the level of local, but they end up losing each and everything. You have just reminded us about the appeal from the president on university education, both primary and secondary. Right Honorable Speaker, how can we do it? Most of sub-counties do not have secondary schools. Some parishes do not have primary schools. Can these sub-counties also be prioritized so that we can move with the president? We appeal to him to assist us to see that every sub-county has a secondary school and every parish has a primary school. Where I come from, I have 3 sub-counties do not have secondary schools. Karonga, Kayebe, Chitenga, every. So, members, I appeal to you also. Let's stick on that. Since it is his player, it is his appeal. Let's stick on it. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Bujenje.
Thank you, Right Honorable.
Honorable colleagues, you don't need to stand up. I'm reading from the list.
At the heart of our theme this year for the budget is digital transformation of the country. But when you look at the funding gap that is supposed to assist the ICT sector, it is wanting. It's at this moment that when you look at the 0.5% allocated to the ICT, I would implore the government to invest heavily in ICT so that we can be in position to have a foundation from the primary schools by giving ICTs in computers, computer support for our students through the learning curve. Secondly, it's a bit disheartening if we tell people that we have a lot of power and we have built capacity to generate electricity in this country when we have not done adequate planning and investment in transmission and distribution of power. The money we are spending in deemed energy would have done us great in terms of building capacity and infrastructure to move electricity to all parts of this country. Finally, Right Honorable, the Committee on Education's report budget spoke to a meeting of members of parliament from Bunyoro and Busoga about getting a vote. I thought this was the role of the Ministry of Finance to give a vote for these universities. We have talked about Bunyoro University and Busoga for quite a long time. It's at this moment that I would implore government to at least put some money for these universities to kick off. I thank you, Right Honorable.
Thank you, Dr. Rionga.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues. I would like also to appreciate the Budget Committee for presenting a very good report, but also, according when he was starting, he said that the Health Committee made the best report, and that's under my control. You have to clap for me. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, health is wealth. And if you want to, the objective of the human capital development is is to improve population health, safety, management, access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene. So if you are to meet that objective, then the health budget shouldn't be cut. In fact, it should be increased. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, since I was made the chairperson of the Health Committee, all members come to me. They want either drugs, center force, and ambulances. And if I give them a very good answer, I will give you. That if resources are availed. Right Honorable Speaker, the chair, when I was presenting a report, he talked of the three priorities, but there are more than three priorities. The first one was completing health center fours, which are incomplete. That was not my submission. We talked of completing and completed structures. We have center fours, we have staff houses, we have the dilapidated building. There are many, but it was completing the uncompleted structures before it to embark on constructing new ones.
Also, the definitions of sector, of budget, and all that. So that here we come back to our rules, we amend our rules, and we make program committees. We stop having sector committees where people are scattered all over. And so I really need, before anything else, the Attorney General to commit to us that the budget for next year, because this one is already ready. And these are direct amendments with no financial implication, just realigning.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, we have actually communicated the instruction of Parliament, which we entirely agree with, to the Ministry of Finance. We support Ministry of Finance or whichever entity is the custodian of the law. But what we can do, Right Honorable Speaker, is to follow up ourselves and draft the bill and forward it to them and say, this is our proposal of the bill, and then they can proceed with it. We undertake to do that before the end of next month.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Attorney General. Now we are going to open debate. I mean, he has made a commitment. So I don't know what clarification. But he's not on floor. Clarification, someone must be on floor. There's no one on the floor. No, it can't be important when it's not aligning with the rules. Clarification, someone must be on the floor. No one is there. Yeah. So, Honourable Minister for Finance. Honourable Minister for Finance. Is there any critical clarification you want to make that can guide the debate, or I open the debate and then you respond later? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I propose that debate be opened. We shall respond at once at the end.
Okay. Thank you. Honourable colleagues, at the beginning of this session, us who were here, we made our resolution that we shall take first priority in terms of submitting, to the extent that we registered our names with the presiding officer. So I'll be first picking from the members who kept time and registered their interest. That's number one. Number two, I think it's an opportunity for the name of Parliament to be cleared on some of the things. A very good example. In last year's budget speech, the President requested Parliament to support him on the issue of universal free primary and secondary education. The President said, Parliament, support me because you appropriate. Now, if we don't tackle that issue, then they will say, no, the President assigned you, you never address that issue. I think it will be a very big opportunity for us to play our role as the President requested us. And even in the tours he's having, he has emphasized it so much. So finance must tell us, and education, what is needed that we must do. Number two, Honourable Minister, you have financed and, for example, URA, okay? But if you finance URA without financing UNBS, and then URA clears and people's goods are stuck, because UNBS doesn't have staff, doesn't have capacity to clear. I have very many people coming, they say, we pay taxes, but we remain stuck with UNBS, it cannot move. Reason being, UNBS is not facilitated to do that, and yet it's collecting the money. UCC, honorable colleagues are always in my office, help us get masks, help us get masks. So I had it called the executive director UCC. Say, but there is a fund which we use that you get from telecoms. I found 50% of that fund is taken to the consolidated fund. So it's not helping us to digitize the rural areas, to do affirmative action for the rural areas. If it's a fund meant for that, why don't we give that money to UCC? And it helps us, we who come from rural areas. I'm tired of MPs coming to my office, and I'm lobbying, I'm calling here and there, when there is a fund created for that purpose. Then the issue of publicity and Signet. Colleagues, you remember when we were talking about digital transformation, we talked of Signet, but as I talk, Signet is only in Kampala, free to air. Free to air. Your people who cannot afford to pay monthly cannot watch you. The ones who watch you, your voters don't have a chance. And yet we programmed very well for that, to say we must be watched by local people who cannot afford monthly payments. So why don't we conclude those things? And finally, two things. I received a call from someone. Asked me, who said, I want to understand. How come you're destroying drugs when we don't have drugs in our health centers? And someone hears you destroy drugs of 300 billion. 300 billion. Over 300 billion according to the Auditor General. But they are looking for Panadol in our health centers. They are stuck. So someone says, so did you focus more on those drugs which expire so that you make money and you leave those which are essential for us? And then finally, the Committee on Natural Resources has talked about the issue of iron ore and mining, Honorable Kamuntu's area is good for that. Now, the licenses are not given to the factories. The factories whom we are telling that stop importing steel raw materials, use iron ore from our area, but we say it without giving them the licenses. And you find someone is having around 20 licenses in this country. Let it be for gold, let it be for what? And they are vending. They are vending because there is one manufacturer who told me that a holder of a license asked him for $8 million. A holder of a license who is not using it for anything. For him as a manufacturer, he can't get it. But a holder is having it vending, saying $8 million. Give me, I go, I become rich. I don't care about the rest. So I just wanted to record these observations. Also, I get feedback from the public. And then we open now. I'll start with Dr. Biakatonda, followed by Professor Mshemeza, followed by, for those who were not here when we were starting. Okay, I will not allow procedure. I will first pick the people who came here by 10. Okay, wait, I will give you a chance to submit and your procedure will be covered from there. It's just a debate. Dr. Biakatonda, Professor Mshemeza, Honorable Cherangat, Solomon, Honorable Saro Pendi, Honorable Mseven William, Honorable Kiza Kenneth, Honorable Yonga, Honorable Donald Katariwa. And then I go from there.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the Chair for the report presented that will culminate into a debate and harmonize a number of things. Right Honorable Speaker, I note that there is a commitment to reduce on the debt by 50%. I think that's very important. I think what has disturbed my soul is normally when you have a motion to borrow. But now we want to know what's the strategy and what are those clear indicators that will demonstrate this commitment of reducing our debt burden by 50%. Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, what we must take serious is where we are failing to have harmonization between the NDP4 and the budget framework paper, where the other is talking of 92 trillion and the other talks of 57 trillion. That's important because ideally, in this process, we need to harmonize the two documents in order to move. I want to know what's the commitment, how do we really go about it? Because when we remain at the current budget figure in the budget framework paper, the others are talking of 92 trillion. How do we harmonize and get to one common figure and ensure that we move in tandem? Two, on climate finance, Right Honorable Speaker, when you're presiding over one session last year, 3 nursery operators came here. These are people who come and borrow loans and actually put up nurseries. But there is a public outcry, they have never been paid. So under climate finance, can we focus on this and see how we can help handle this matter? Then on human resource development, Right Honorable Speaker, I am happy that last sitting you mentioned that you went to Mbale Industrial Park and you're going there has caused some results. However, as workers representatives, we normally have challenges where every day, quite often, machines are cutting people, workers in those areas. There are no remittances, there are no collective bargaining agreements, and yet Uganda is one of the constituencies of ILO. How I wish we could actually see how we would move and ensure that we have this. Then on that aspect still, Right Honorable Speaker, how would we consider the primary teacher and other lower cadres? Are they catered for under this Human Resource Development Fund appropriation? This is very important so that we can actually move. So these are very core issues because you find that already there are gaps between scientists and that teachers and other workers. So under the Human Resource Development Fund, is there an indication that even the primary teachers will be catered for? Otherwise, going forward, I think
we can move and ensure that we get better. But of course, the other disturbing aspect is when we talk of, NDP is talking of 2.4 trillion for agro-industrialization. And of course, when we talk of import substitution, Right Honorable Speaker and my colleagues, we can only reduce imports by actually producing and exporting through value addition. That's very important. And by so doing, the committee has assured us that they are looking at aspect of research as very important. But we find that institutions like NARO, Right Honorable Speaker, are underfunded. And right now, even in terms of staffing, they are below 40. And yet, now when you talk of PDM, these people really require quality planting materials. But they just speak anything and plant under PDM, and then the returns on their investment is very jeopardized. That's very important. And it's good you mentioned on ENBS lastly. Right Honorable Speaker, the solution was given. Institutions like NDA are using NTR. Institutions like UWA are using NTR to supplement on their budgets, and likewise MTAC. Why don't we really ensure that we cross this gap and ensure that ENBS is facilitated through such an arrangement? I beg to submit.
Thank you. Professor Mshemeza.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I want to thank the Chair of Budget and Honourable Semuju Nganda. Their presentations will really shape the debate. At the beginning, I seconded the motion, but I have concerns. And I had wanted these concerns to be responded to the Chair by the Chair Budget and Minister of Finance. But after listening to the explanations by the Chair Budget and Honorable Semuju Nganda, I now redirect my friendly fire to the Minister of Finance. Last year, we had a presentation from Park Central, a very detailed presentation. And it was clear from the evidence that was presented that in a number of financial years, government had not realized the projected income. Because most times we concentrate on the expenditure side and we rarely focus on the income side. And during that presentation, it was also provided that in one of the financial years, Ministry of Finance had warranted around 43 trillion. And even that 43 trillion was never realized. In this financial year, where we had a budget of 71 trillion, we are still struggling. The implication is that our people outside there, after reading the budget, they are very expectant in service delivery. Yet we cannot raise the money. Now we are talking of 57 trillion. And we have never realized 57 trillion in the last 5 financial years. So, Minister of Finance, what assurance can you give us that this time around you realize 57 trillion? Actually, I'm happy that Parliament directed that National Development Authority should revise the development plan because it is unrealistic. We are not going to correct 67 trillion in the first financial. It's not possible. And you are here. You will not correct it. It's good that we directed that we revise. So I want assurance as a second of this motion from the Minister of Finance. What magic, what bullet are you going to fire to realize at least 48 trillion so that service delivery can be realized? Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Motion?
Thank you.
Is the motion on the floor?
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. I raise under Rule 59(1)(b). That's a motion for adjournment for purposes of discussing a definite matter of urgent public importance. Right Honourable Speaker, we've started a budget process, and this is an activity we've gone through annually, regularly, like we're supposed to do. Last year, we passed a budget, and when we sent the budget to the President returned it with a very hostile communication. In the communication of the President, he actually condemned us as members of Parliament as being corrupt, and he said we are criminal and we ate up roads. He enumerated a number of roads in his communication, in his opinion, that we could have eaten up if we had passed the budget the way we had made it. Honorable Speaker, because of the urgency of the matter at that time, we were unable to discuss that later because we are time-barred. We passed the budget as the President desired, but we never discussed the President's communication, which didn't augur well with us members of Parliament and gave a very, very bad reputation to Parliament. I am here to move, Right Honorable Speaker, that that letter be discussed by us so that we determine our role as members of Parliament in the budget process, so that we don't face what we faced last time, so that we are not blamed for eating up roads like the President said. I submit, Mr. Speaker, that we debate that letter first to be able to facilitate the budget process appropriately. I thank you.
The motion seconded. Honorable Kabuso, Honorable Chime, Honorable Mwijuche, Honorable Semiji, Honorable Awor, Honorable Nsamba. So I'm going to put a question. Okay? No. Honorable colleagues, these are things which are direct. Okay? The data was with you and all that. Now, another thing you should remember, we should have this BFP approved by 1st of February. So, I just want to be as lenient as possible. This is your time. You're the ones who determine how to use it. Okay? But this is a direct matter, whether to discuss the rate of the President or not. Really, I don't need to put much about it. Okay? No, you're not the mover. Okay? Yeah. So, honorable colleagues, just let me put a question directly and then we can move. It's not a must that you must speak to the motion. You may. It's not a must in the rules. You may. If it's very direct, I put a question. Direct, okay? Procedure?
Mr. Speaker, the procedure point, we are going to take a vote on a motion. For example, I sit on the budget committee. The chair who has presented the report was even hesitant that we should include the unfunded priority, until some of us argued that you must put them. So you can see hesitance even from the budget committee to do the right work. So the procedural issue I am raising is whether you should not allow the mover and those of us who second the motion to explain why this is important before we process a budget, to clearly assign ourselves what we want to do and what we are expected to do, Mr. Speaker.
First of all, this is a settled matter. This is a settled matter. How is it a settled matter? The rate of the President was a rate of returning a bill, okay, which was referred to the committee, okay? The committee made a report. You came here, you debated. I remember you expressed a lot of discontent on what the President had said in the rate and all that. So all that explanation and frustrations of members and justifications were even put on record. This was, we discussed the President's letter. Yes, because when the President's letter, the President didn't write a letter at Parliament. No. This was a letter returning the bill. And it was referred to the committee. No, please. Honorable colleagues, really, my memory is very clear. This was an issue which was clearly settled at that time. So when you say you want to justify to do what, it's a very straight matter. So I'm going to put a question.
Can I remind you, Right Honorable Speaker, with your permission?
Please remind me, the mover.
Right Honorable Speaker, thank you so much. Because of the time constraint, The bill was not returned to the committee. Well, after the speaker read the letter here, we constituted ourselves into a committee of supply and immediately discussed the budget items and passed the budget. So there was no time to refer the bill back to the committee. That didn't take place. And also, Right Honorable Speaker, what was so prominent in that letter is that members of parliament doubted their role. Actually, there was a question, what is our role if we cannot change anything in the budget? And we are not guided. I think this is the right time that we speak to those issues and get to know our role, Right Honorable Speaker.
Chair budget, because you're the one who was here, you brought it here on the floor. Just let me first handle one, okay? Let me first handle one. I can't handle all at once.
Mr. Speaker and colleagues, the matter of the letter of the President is a normal procedure where the President may return a bill to this House. And that bill was returned, and we processed it, and we voted and passed it. I am not aware of any new letter that we must consider information.
No, I want to be as lenient as possible, okay? But Honorable Samba, you had a procedure matter. You just had the procedure matter.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, over time, we've hurriedly processed the budget business here, a very critical matter to this House. But we always give excuses of timelines. We always rush things in the interest of beating deadlines. Mr. Speaker, the President will unusually, it was an unusual process that happened last year. If we don't accord it time, we are going to go through the same things. We pass it. Mr. Speaker, the President now has powers to do it even after reading the budget, because the bill is always returned before the budget is read. But this one you're talking about came when the budget was even read to the public. That was, we looked so shabby as Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I raised a matter here over matters of compliance to the law. You ruled that when we reach this stage, we shall deal with it. But Mr. Speaker, you don't want to look there. At this stage, you want us to debate as though the main report has not highlighted matters to do with compliance to the law. The minority report has highlighted matters compliance to the law. But Mr. Speaker, you're here rushing the process. You want to end these things as though this is the way we must operate. Mr. Speaker, I am begging you. This country is in your hand.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable colleagues, it is an insult to me. Who was here, okay, by 10 to start a session and you are not here, and you are choosing me of rushing things. It's an insult to begin with. It's an insult. You don't even keep time, okay? When you enter, you immediately want to grab a microphone. It's an insult. I think we should respect each other when we come here. Rope was here. Rope was seated here. I have a list of the members who are here. That's number one. Number two, honorable colleagues, when we come here and we deal with matters and you are not satisfied, you can come and move a motion to reconsider a decision of the House. It's provided for in the rules. You came, you discussed. I remember, I was, in fact, the whole of that session, I was seated in the VIP lounge. That's where I watched from. Because I remember Chairman Isiag here presenting, okay? And everything ended. So, but I mean, this is the BFP, okay? what you should also understand, a BFP is not final in its own nature. In fact, Honorable Semuju used the good language when he said a BFP is like a first draft of the budget. When you do a draft and it has problems, you go improve it. And that's why you make recommendations. Here you're not supplying money, you're not doing anything. So Honorable Zamba, you know, the reports, whether they raise critical issues and all that, the reports are not final documents. That's why you must vote on them. And I'm saying the time we have, we should use it to debate these reports, and you submit on the issues raised, and we get responses. So, but since I allowed a motion, please, Rob.
Honourable Speaker, I do understand the need to debate. I'm looking forward myself. Let me wait so that I have the Speaker's attention, since I would like to request for your guidance. Honourable Speaker, matters of law are very critical matters. The legislature here formulates law, passes laws. We must be able to follow laws ourselves. We are looking forward to debating the budget framework paper. I am looking forward to raising my concerns too. But I thought I would get guidance from you, perhaps, and the Attorney General on a critical matter of law. Section 9(3) of the Public Finance Management Act provides that the budget framework paper shall be consistent with the National Development Plan and the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. That's a law that we passed here, Parliament passed. It's a law of 2015. We were not here, many of us, but it's a law that is still on our law books. The majority report and the minority report have both adumbrated the fact that this budget framework paper that we are going to debate is inconsistent with the National Development Plan and the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. So while we are eager to debate, right, Honourable Speaker, I would like us to be guided even legally, because we want to beat the deadline of 1st February, which is within the law. I don't think it's prudent that we break one law so as to keep another law. And so I would like that we be guided properly legally, so that we are not looking forward to fulfill one law, but you're breaking another law. And it's not a minor law. Otherwise, then let's amend that law, get it out of our law books, so that the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility is irrelevant in as far as the budget framework paper is concerned. But as of now, Section 9(3) of the Public Finance Management Act is very clear. Can we follow the law?
Thank you. Now, before I disturb the attorney, we have an issue which we must first settle. Yeah, because now I'm going to mix many issues. Please. I just want to be as lenient as possible. But Honorable Aisha should have moved under Rule 222, which is reconsidering a decision of the House, so that you give us a notice. The President didn't write parliamentary letter. I just want this one to first be clarified. The President returned a bill with a justification for returning a bill.
We'll examine the patient and came to the conclusion that is dead. We only differ on what happens. Do you set up a burial committee? The majority are saying, you buy medicine, but the person is dead. And I want to go by your guidance at the beginning of this process, that actually if there is non-compliance, there is even the option to reject. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, consideration of the budget framework paper is the first but most important stage in the appropriation process. It is at this stage that you interact with the set of priorities for the next financial year. Articles 154 and 155 of the Constitution assign you, Parliament, and the executive specific roles in preparation of the country's annual budget. Under Article 154, no monies can be withdrawn from the consolidated fund except with your authority, and here I mean Parliament, which you exercise through enactment of the Appropriation Act. When you fail to appropriate in time, the President is allowed by the same article to access monies to run public affairs, but only for 4 months. And I want to emphasize, taxpayers' money can only be withdrawn with your permission. If you surrender this responsibility, please blame nobody except yourself. Article 155 instructs the President to prepare and submit to you the annual budget for approval. It also gives you authority to determine the format the President must follow in preparation. The format you set out in the Public Finance Management Act states, the Minister of Finance shall, for each financial year, prepare a budget framework paper approved by Cabinet and present it to you, here I mean Parliament. The budget framework paper, therefore, is the first draft. This is the stage where the aspirations of your people come face to face with the government priorities, and the chair has listed those aspirations. Mr. Speaker, I begin with the format. Section 9 of the Public Finance Management Act and Schedule 3 outlines the format the budget framework paper must follow. Your first task this morning is to examine whether the budget framework paper before you followed the format. Among others, the budget framework paper must be consistent with the National Development Plan and with the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. I want to emphasize that the chair has said actually it was not consistent. But in the conclusion, majority are saying approve. Schedule 3 of the Public Finance Management Act outlines 8 other parameters that the framework paper must meet, including projections of government expenditure in respect of each vote for the financial year and the next financial year, split into current expenditure and investment plan. This is listed as number 7 on the schedule. Let us examine the consistency of the budget framework paper with the set parameters. Part of the examination, we agreed that actually it was inconsistent. The draft budget, you may call it the budget framework paper, and therefore is supposed to finance the country's national development plan. The National Development Plan is developed by National Planning Authority under the National Planning Authority Act. The development plan is supposed to be approved by Parliament. On December 19th, 2024, Minister of Finance presented to Parliament the budget framework paper together with the draft National Development Plan, which is NDP4. The following day, Honorable Musasizi was on his Twitter account celebrating this mess. That both documents came the same day. Actually, one must precede because you begin drafting a budget according to the plan, but they came together. I don't know what they were following. What a Senate government, something I cannot accuse NRM of, should have done is to present a draft plan for approval by Parliament first, and then a draft budget prepared in accordance with the plan. The development plan was approved by Parliament on January 9th, 2025, 20 days after the presentation of the budget. Not surprising that the two documents don't speak to each other. The development plan proposes 92 trillion budget for the first year of implementation, which is next financial year. The budget, as rightly captured by the majority report, proposes 57.44 trillion. Either the development plan was guesswork or the framework paper, or both. The development plan projects 67.7 trillion in revenue correction in the first year, but the framework paper puts it at 33.681 trillion. Spending on luxury. The development plan and budget framework paper list agro-industrialization, tourism, minerals, including oil and gas, and science and technology, including ICT and creative art, which are summarized as items as top priorities. But real money is allocated to the usual useless things such as donations, workshop, travel, special meals, vehicles, furniture, etc. In this year's budget, government didn't give National Curriculum Development Center, leave alone the 12 billion, but they wanted 7 billion as a stopgap measure because you have children who are reporting next month. 7 billion was not put in the budget to prepare curriculum for senior 5. But allocated our visionary leader, General Yoweri Museveni Tibuhaburwa, 80 billion for donation. You have no money for curriculum, the president has money for donation. To the NRM government, popularizing an 80-year-old man who has been in power for 39 years was more important than preparing a curriculum for our children. Then they speak of a development plan. Look at the money this visionary leader is spending visiting sugarcane plantations in Busoga and posing for photos as if he's an extension worker. A serious leader should be launching tractors and irrigation equipment, but not visiting recipients of 1 million shilling PDM. What is troubling our people are broken road network, neglected and decaying health facilities, mismanaged and underfunded education sector. The committee has reported about Mulago Intensive Care Unit. In fact, the beds are not 27. There are beds in other units that come to a total of 40 intensive care unit beds. Only 15 are in use because of lack of staff. Please have appetite to bring this nonsense to an end. Mr. Speaker, you need to look at the allocations because usually details, as the chair said, they hide in many words as if they are in a workshop. Yet the actual locations speak about something else. Look, you have beddings, clothing, footwear, and related services as aggregated, given 132.2 billion. You have no money for curriculum, no money for intensive care. Donations in this budget that we started processing, donations is 159 billion. You have money for fuel, 355 billion. Special meals and drinks, 298 billion. Welfare and entertainment, 139 billion. This money is allocated. It's not that it's unfunded. The chair presented here unfunded. This is already funded. So this is the priority according to the NRM government. The unfunded is not a priority. Travel abroad, 53 billion. Travel inland, 783. Mind you, some of the travels, you all see government vehicles. People are just touring their farms, and they are spending 783 billion. Workshops, meetings, and seminars, 237. Staff training, 418 billion. Books, periodicals, and newspapers, 65 billion. Buying of new vehicles, 86 billion. Maintaining transport equipment, which is repairing these vehicles of the good people running government, 131 billion. Printing, stationery, photocopying, and binding, 110 billion. Furniture and fittings, 39 billion. Consultancy, 572 billion. So you have a total of just these selected items coming to 3.5 trillion on these items. And then they have given you the unfunded priority, but they are asking you to approve. This information you can find They are supposed to put it in the budget framework paper. They did not. They are hiding it. Please go to the Ministry of Finance website, www.budget.finance.go.ug. You will get this information. You just click an Excel download and then continue as I have indicated in this report. Because they want you to read these things without giving you the details, yet the law says they must. Unrealistic 57.441 trillion total budget. Parliament should take note that although the development plan proposes 92 trillion, even the 57.441 trillion in the budget framework paper is unrealistic, going by the recent budget performance. For the financial year 2023-2024, Parliament approved a budget of 52.7 trillion, revised it to 61.6 trillion through supplementary requests, but only 50 was released, warranted by Finance, according to Auditor General. Finance never released a total of 11.4 trillion, and the release itself was hot air, because only 48.6 was available, was the actual money available. In 2022, total budget approved was 52.5 trillion. 49 was released, but actual money available for spending was 43. So the actual money mobilized for spending is still under 50 trillion. A realistic budget should therefore not exceed 50 trillion, or at worst 52, because of our economic situation. If more resources become available, then you return to Parliament with a supplementary. But you don't bring here a budget of 72 trillion, yet you know at the end of the financial year you can only mobilize 48. Making a total budget look bigger, like this financial year 72 trillion, I think, is for self-gratification. It is for showing off on how NRM economic miracle has transformed the country. It is also for making bigger the 3% of the total budget that the government can spend as supplementary without prior Parliament approval. Public debt. The Accountant General, in a statement which is attached to the audit report, states that public debt has increased from 97.5 trillion in June 2023 to 109 trillion June 2024. Honorable members, our country has been mortgaged. This debt represents 53% of our declared GDP of 202 trillion, which is 53.3 billion US dollar. Debt to GDP ratio is a comparison of what you are producing as a country and the money you owe other people. This huge debt is inconsistent with the stated objective outlined in the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. The objective is to keep the debt below 50% of GDP. The debt comprises money borrowed to finance the budget, domestic area, pension, and gratuity. What should worry you is that government wants to finance the 52 trillion next financial year's budget by borrowing another 24 trillion, because it projects to raise revenue only of 33 trillion. By approving the budget framework paper, you are giving government a green light to borrow. They will be coming here, and you should expect Honorable Musasi to continue trafficking loan requests to Parliament during the course of next financial year, and he will be reminding you, you are the one who approved the budget. Now I am bringing money to finance it. The figure of the total public debt is also contested. In calculating public debt, finance doesn't include domestic areas. They have even forced the Auditor General to do the same thing. Finance claims that public debt is at 94 trillion, rising from 86 trillion they declared last financial year. One of the tactics finance is using these days is to exclude undisbursed loans, yet we pay commitment fees on them. So they are trying to exclude many things to make the debt look smaller. Still on debt, I am looking at the vote, which is meant to be servicing debt, treasury operations. The total budget that we are approving in the budget framework paper, I want to repeat, is 57, but nearly half of it, 20 trillion, which is 35% as usual, is for debt servicing. The table below shows the breakdown of this total debt servicing. I hope the table can be flashed there. It has details here of what we will be paying. Of interest here, Mr. Speaker, you have ROCO, you have Congo, DRC. If you look at claims payment, we are still paying money to Congo because the Attorney General is here. We lost a case in the international court. This NRM government was accused of many crimes in Congo, including rape. If you want, you can go to the CGA website, including rape, including plundering gold, including timber, and many other things. And as a result, we were told to pay $325 million US, which comes to over 1.2 trillion. For you to appreciate that figure, we have just borrowed money to do roads in the Kampala metropolitan, which is just about the same figure. But at least every metropolitan, including my constituents, have some roads done. So these people who went and plundered Congo and stole gold, they should even stop them from coming here. Because this money should be, no, the report is explained. If you followed the format of the chair, I see you are restless.
Procedure.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I'm trying to follow this submission of my colleague, but I don't know what page we are at, because there are some things he was saying, but I didn't see Congo, rape. I don't see rape, plunder, ICJ. I'm just requesting, are we proceeding well? Because if we want to follow the report, just keep us at the report, then we can debate.
Yes, let's listen to each other, honorable colleagues. I already had my concerns, which I wanted to share at the end. Because I had, for example, some of the words used, unparliamentary. A very good example being like the word nonsense. You can hold an opinion, but there are words in Parliament, on the official record of Parliament. But now, I had wanted the chair rules to help us, because Rule 84 on parliamentary language, it limits us on debate. So, what about reports? And if on reports it's really a blank check, I think this is one of the rules we should look at, because a report will be used by researchers. It's a very, very important record that we will have. Okay? Chair rules.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Actually, the rules talk about the parliamentary debate. And the question that arises is whether the report is part of the parliamentary debate. In my opinion, it is.
Because why I was concerned, after presentation of report, I have to open a debate. Okay? Now, how does it become part of a debate before I open a debate, before I declare a debate? So I was concerned about that. But Chair, you look at it as Chair, and you will guide. We see whether we need to expand it and have more clarity. But what is like nonsense? Then number two, colleagues, and I saw also with the Chair budget, when you're reading a report, read a report. Then you have a chance of responses and where you can explain much more. Otherwise, all that detail you wanted, it should be in a report. A report should be read verbatim so that your submission is consistent with the report when one is reading the Hansard. So, Honorable Semuju, just you are about to conclude. The explanations can come in form of clarifications during the debate.
Mr. Speaker, tables don't speak. At least in my training, tables are explained. Because if you want me to translate this table in 2 pages, this report will be 100 pages. So I just do a simple explanation presenting a table. And I know the Honorable Chiwanuka Chiriowa knows this, that when you are presenting a table, you explain. Even in court you do. I see you don't just throw documents at the table. So I wanted the Parliament to appreciate that part of what we are paying on that table is money to Democratic Republic of Congo. How did it arise? Because we were accused of looting, of killing, of damage.
We've gone back to the same one.
Order, please. Right Honorable Speaker has ruled.
Yeah.
And as a senior colleague whom we look at to guide us who are just starting out, when the Speaker has ruled, I only think that's only courteous that we follow the ruling of the Speaker and proceed.
Honorable colleagues, we will have a chance, to speak unlimited, okay? Let's stick to the report. And also a table can have explanatory notes if you wanted to give all those more details. For example, I can say like on contingency fund, you preferred to just write contingency fund, but on court awards, you put in bracket DRC and mandamus. You see, it was your option. You could have put in more details. So just let's conclude so that we don't derail the debate.
Mr. Speaker, I will now leave the table because it is causing some people to be restless. This information, Mr. Speaker, if you go below the table, actually I am presenting information as supplied to us by Minister of Finance. I am not the source. The 20.7 trillion amount for debt servicing in the budget framework paper is different from what is captured on the Minister of Finance website. Here, the total budget for debt servicing in the framework paper on their website is 21.612 trillion, which is a difference of 886.2 billion. The table below, all these tables are not my table. I didn't draw them. This one is by Finance in the budget framework paper. Then they have another one on their website that has this information. And for NRM, this is expected. Parliament, I am inviting you, must take keen interest in Vote 130 to stop wasting taxpayers' money. For instance, the Auditor General report for 2023 noted that Vote 130 had an approved budget of 16.8 trillion, but lacked a vote strategic plan. That's on page 518. In the same year, the vote received a total supplementary budget of 46 billion to cater for commitment fees. In the same year, payments through this vote totaled to 286, which was paid to Ruoa Specialized Hospital based on unsupported. It's not linked to the other. So just for you to take note that this vote is used for many things, including paying Pineti. So the year in the report of the Auditor General, we paid Pineti 286 billion based on unsupported completion certificate. That is page 518. In the latest report, which was presented to Parliament, the Auditor General says 2 trillion requested to service debt through supplementary was never released. And last year, it is this vote that government raided, the word is not raised, raided to pay Magora 500 billion. So this vote is a cash cow for finance. They come here screaming on top of their voice that they want money to service public debt, when actually it is not the case. Before you approve this framework paper, you must order for a forensic audit on this vote. Because he has money there. So if they want to pay Magola, they just go there and pick and pay. If they want to pay Roko, they go there. That's what you did last year. Mr. Speaker, I go to domestic areas. There is a tendency to pay more attention to money directly borrowed from banks at the expense of goods and services supplied to government by our people. You know, this government borrows from everybody. It borrows stationery from Nkuruma Road, furniture from small shops, food from restaurants, and rents ordinary people's buildings. Doing this is not bad, but refusing to pay is bad manners. Money government owes ordinary people, commonly known as domestic areas, has now hit 14 trillion last financial year. It increased by 30% from 10 trillion 2023. And guess what? They have allocated a paltry 200 billion in the budget to cater for domestic areas. These areas include 260 billion in gratuity and pension. You have seen old people shed tears on television because of their unpaid pension and gratuity. Some people of Mr. Museveni's age die before receiving their pension. Finance claims that then biggest component of domestic area is 9.1 trillion owed to Bank of Uganda, which they have cleared. If it is true, because even this one we must find out, it means domestic areas now totals to over 5 trillion. Payment of domestic areas must be a top priority of next year's budget. People who borrowed money from banks with attendant interests. Does it make sense to capitalize Ugandan Development Bank to lend to small enterprises and you refuse to pay them when they supply you? I think the intention is to kill businesses of indigenous people at the expense of Chinese and Indians. How comes any cabinet is paid on time, even for no work done? With this information, I invite Parliament to reject the whole of this budget framework paper because it does not comply with the Public Finance Management Act, the National Development Plan. The Minister of Finance should be instructed to submit another framework paper that complies with the law and addresses the many concerns of this House as outlined in the main report. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Semju. Before I open the debate, Attorney General, there is a commitment you made for us here, because we said we want to realign our committees with the budgeting process. I was here, I found KCCA was appearing in 4 meetings at once. The executive director, the deputy executive director, the director for what, all at once. Reason being they are scattered all over. We have failed to align our program-based budgeting to the structures. The committee of rules, led by Mr. Abdul Katuntu, presented here a report, and which we considered too, that we shall need to amend section 13.4 of the PFMA. And
Internal Affairs is still asking for funds to print passports, booklets abroad, yet there has been a promise to construct and print passports under NEC and in Uganda. The committee was also concerned that Uzima increases production but continues to make losses. The committee was also concerned that our own UPDF engineering brigade is charging very high commercial rates for its infrastructure. Isn't there a way we can work as brothers and sisters and charge the normal rate? The committee observed that Uganda Air Cargo has collapsed, seemingly, and should transfer its assets to Uganda Airlines. On the environment, I'm about to come to the home of this. On the environment and natural resources, the committee observed that Uganda is rich in iron, yet the steel manufacturers do not use the primary raw material. The committee noted the defunct Rural Electrification Agency has left certain programs unfulfilled. You know, REA, which is the 1% levy from UCC, just get its money and support the rural areas, even in ICT, in electricity and also in in providing ICT services to other countries, to our schools and in communities. But Ministry of Finance has not delivered that money to those people of UCC. And there is even some infrastructure which was left in some of the schools, either by UCC and also by REA. So they are facing a similar change of the 1% levy. So government should look into that. The committee was concerned that water for production is budgeted in the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, and it's also budgeted in the Ministry of Water and Environment. The question is, at what point will government wake up to harmonize this situation? Duplication. It's clearly same words in the Ministry of Agriculture, same words in the Ministry of Water, billions there, billions there. But government seems to be paralyzed. When will government wake up to streamline this? The committee observed that National Environment Management Authority is underfunded and understaffed, yet it's a sector that cannot be ignored. It's a key in the well-being of Ugandans, and some resources should be given to NEMA. The committee observed that the government's effort to generate electricity does not match investments in transmission, so adequate resources should be put along the value chain of generation, distribution, in that order. Committee on Health. I must say, Mr. Speaker, the people in the Committee of Health, they did a very good report. I think, Mr. Speaker, people should read that report on its own. Well analyzed, and the committee had a lot of proposals which I think will help this country. Number one, they suggested that, among other things in that report, that we must complete incomplete health center 4s and health center 3s. We put money under UGIFT. They are there around the country. They need to be completed. They need equipment, and they need staff. So let's do one thing at a time before we go to the next step. Number two, recruit health workers. The level of staffing for health workers across the country is worrying. We need to look at it, especially at the lower level, at health center 3 and health center 4. Number four, the full procurement of medicine and medical supplies. Because and I'm sure it was a reassuring when the Minister of Finance, Henry, came to our committee. There was a budget cut of 100 billion for national medical stars, but he says he has put back the money. And we are happy that to hear from Henry that he has put back the money for national medical stars, the 100 billion, which we saw in the budget framework, but it was not there. The committee also was concerned that last financial year, government and the Ministry of Health bought ambulances for certain constituencies and distributed them and dispatched them to the same. But in this current budget, there is no proposal to buy the balance of ambulances. Why? So there is a question there. And the recommendation is that government should provide that resource to buy the ambulances for the remaining constituencies. 3, the committee was concerned about the increase in the number of the drug expiries at the national medical stores as reported by the Auditor General. The committee was informed that a number of expiries arose from the frequent changes of the HIV ARVs regimens. So government should look into that because they need money now. They need a lot of money to just destroy expired drugs instead of using it to buy new drugs. The committee was also concerned that the Auditor General found that only 15 out of the 27 beds in the ICU unit of Mulago are fully functional. The committee was also concerned about the absenteeism of staff in health center 4s across the country. The average is very low. The committee noted that the different health service providing entities are requesting for training funds. The committee recommends that the training function should be centralized to the Ministry of Health to ensure proper coordination. There was also concern from colleagues from Bukedi that why is there a region without a regional hospital, the only region in the country without a regional hospital. and they needed that Tororo be upgraded to a regional referral hospital. Number 8, the committee was also concerned that funds for the maintenance of existing ambulances was not provided in the budget, and there was a budget to that effect. The committee noted that Uganda is faced with an increase in mental health problems among the population. The committee was informed that the regional referral hospital, the National Regional Hospital, is lacking in terms of mental health. The regional referral hospitals are lacking in terms of mental health units, but there's also a shortage of staffing. The committee was concerned about the irresponsible reporting of disease outbreaks in a manner that scares away tourists. Our media and our people always, there is this scare tactics of reporting responsibly, and as if the mpox has covered the whole country, and that scares away tourists from our country. The committee was also concerned about the congestion at the Uganda Cancer Institute and the need to address that. Colleagues and all members, those are the highlights of the budget framework paper. The details, and we want to submit these details and through this house and adopt them to government. Mr. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the summary of additional key funding requirements as per sector committee recommendations are in the table on page 48, running to from page 48 to 102. Please, members, take chance to print this. This is now the Bible where they say the details are. The lawyers say the devil is in the detail. I don't know why they say the devil is in the detail. When you could actually help yourself and find the detail. For example, under Ministry of Agriculture, there is what is provided for under the budget framework paper. There is what is missing, what's noted under different ministries. If you look at look at agriculture, which is our key sector.
All our members are going to read.
Yes.
Okay.
The details are there.
Can you conclude, Honorable?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The devil is in the detail, or the details are in the devil. Whichever. I don't know which one you choose, whether the devil is there or the detail is the devil. Conclusion, Mr. Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, in accordance with Section 9(8) of the Public Finance Management Act 2015 and Rule 140 of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament, the committee recommends that the proposed National Budget Framework Paper for financial year 2025-26 be approved by Parliament with amendments as per the committee recommendations detailed in Annex 1, Annex 2, and Annex 3. I beg to report. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you. Chair, you disagreed with one of your members as a committee. From the information I have, so I want to confirm.
Mr. Speaker, in processing this, 99% of the report actually we agreed in terms of observations. So my colleague, the Honorable Ibrahim Semuju, he doesn't disagree very largely. But I ask his concerns, and I must report to the House that there is a minority report to give those concerns. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Semuju. Kindly present your minority report.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. As the chair said,
External Affairs is still asking for funds to print passport booklets abroad, yet there has been a promise to construct and print passports under NEC and in Uganda. The committee was also concerned that Uzima increases production but continues to make losses. The committee was also concerned that our own UPDF engineering brigade is charging very high commercial rates for its infrastructure. Isn't there a way we can work as brothers and sisters and charge the normal rate? The committee observed that Uganda Air Cargo has collapsed, seemingly, and should transfer its assets to Uganda Airlines. On the environment, I'm about to come to the home of this. On the environment and natural resources, the committee observed that Uganda is rich in iron, yet the steel manufacturers do not use the primary raw material. The committee noted the defunct Rural Electrification Agency has left certain programs unfulfilled. You know, REA, which is the 1% levy from UCC, just get its money and support the rural areas, even in the in electricity and also in in providing ICT services to other countries, to our schools and in communities. But Ministry of Finance has not delivered that money to those people of UCC. And there is even some infrastructure which was left in some of the schools, either by UCC and also by REA. So they are facing a similar change of the 1% levy. So government should look into that. The committee was concerned that water for production is budgeted in the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, and is also budgeted in the Ministry of Water and Environment. The question is, at what point will government wake up to harmonize this situation? Duplication. It's clearly same words in the Ministry of Agriculture, same words in the Ministry of Water, billions there, billions there. But government seems to be paralyzed. When will government wake up to streamline this? The committee observed that National Environment Management Authority is underfunded and understaffed, yet it's a sector that cannot be ignored. It's a key in the well-being of Ugandans, and some resources should be given to NEMA. The committee observed that the government's effort to generate electricity does not match investments in transmission, so adequate resources should be put along the value chain of generation, distribution, in that order. Committee on Health. I must say, Mr. Speaker, the people in the Committee of Health, they did a very good report. I think, Mr. Speaker, people should read that report on its own. Well analyzed. And the committee had a lot of proposals which I think will help this country. Number one, they suggested that, among other things in that report, that we must complete incomplete health center 4s and health center 3s. We put money under UGIFT. They are there around the country. They need to be completed. They need equipment. And they need staff. So let's do one thing at a time before we go to the next step. Number two, recruit health workers. The level of staffing for health workers across the country is worrying. We need to look at it, especially at the lower level, health center 3s and health center 4. Number four, the full procurement of medicine and medical supplies. Because and I'm sure it was a reassuring when the Minister of Finance, Henry, came to our committee. There was a budget cut of 100 billion for national medical stars, but he says he has put back the money. And we are happy that to hear from Henry that he has put back the money for national medical stars, the 100 billion, which we saw in the budget framework, but it was not there. The committee also was concerned that last financial year, government and the Ministry of Health bought ambulances for certain constituencies and distributed them and dispatched them to the same. But in this current budget, there is no proposal to buy the balance of ambulances. Why? So there is a question there. And the recommendation is that government should provide that resource to buy the ambulances for the remaining constituencies. 3, the committee was concerned about the increase in the number of the drug expiries at the national medical stores as reported by the Auditor General. The committee was informed that a number of expiries arose from the frequent changes of the HIV ARVs regimens. So government should look into that because they need money now. They need a lot of money to just destroy expired drugs instead of using it to buy new drugs. The committee was also concerned that the Auditor General found that only 15 out of the 27 beds in the ICU unit of Mulago are fully functional. The committee was also concerned about the absenteeism of staff in health center force across the country. The average is very low. The committee noted that the different health service providing entities are requesting for training funds. The committee recommends that the training function should be centralized to the Ministry of Health to ensure proper coordination. There was also concern from colleagues from Bukedi that why is there a region without a regional hospital, the only region in the country without a regional hospital, and they needed that Tororo be upgraded to a regional referral hospital. Number 8, the committee was also concerned that funds for the maintenance of existing ambulances was not provided in the budget, and there was a budget to that effect. The committee noted that Uganda is faced with an increase in mental health problems among the population. The committee was informed that the regional referral hospital, the National Regional Hospital, is lacking in terms of mental health. The regional referral hospitals are lacking in terms of mental health units, but there's also a shortage of staffing. The committee was concerned about the irresponsible reporting of disease outbreaks in a manner that scares away tourists. Our media and our people always, there is this scare tactics of reporting responsibly, and as if the mpox has covered the whole country, and that scares away tourists from our country. The committee was also concerned about the congestion at the Uganda Cancer Institute and the need to address that. Colleagues and all members, those are the highlights of the budget framework paper. The details, and we want to submit these details and through this house and adopt them to government. Mr. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the summary of additional key funding requirements as per sector committee recommendations are in the table on page 48, running to from page 48 to 102. Please, members, take chance to print this. This is now the Bible where they say the details are. The lawyers say the devil is in the detail. I don't know why they say the devil is in the detail. When you could actually help yourself and find the detail. For example, under Ministry of Agriculture, there is what is provided for under the budget framework paper. There is what is missing, what's noted under different ministries. If you look at look at agriculture, which is our key sector.
All our members are going to read.
Yes.
Okay.
The details are there.
Can you conclude, Honorable?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The devil is in the detail, or the details are in the devil. Whichever. I don't know which one you choose, whether the devil is there or the detail is the devil. Conclusion, Mr. Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, in accordance with Section 9(8) of the Public Finance Management Act 2015 and Rule 140 of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament, the committee recommends that the proposed National Budget Framework Paper for financial year 2025-26 be approved by Parliament with amendments as per the committee recommendations detailed in Annex 1, Annex 2, and Annex 3. I beg to report. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you. Chair, you disagreed with one of your members as a committee. From the information I have, so I want to confirm.
Mr. Speaker, in processing this, 99% of the report actually we agreed in terms of observations. So my colleague, the Honorable Ibrahim Semuju, he doesn't disagree very largely. But I ask his concerns, and I must report to the House that there is a minority report to give those concerns. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Semuju. Kindly present your minority report.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. As the chair said,
in 1, petroleum fund, 2, budget support, 3, net domestic borrowing, 4, Bank of Uganda repayment, and 5, domestic refinancing rollover. This is where the reductions have happened. It's a positive thing, very good. So committee observations, the details are on the table there. We expect, if you look at domestic revenues, this financial year we expect to collect about 32 trillion. Next financial year we are expecting to collect about 34 trillion. So the rest of the details you can see there. The Bank of Uganda repayment, we paid 9.1 trillion this year. We don't have any other debt with Bank of Uganda in the coming financial years. Interest payments, we have paid 9.6 trillion this year. We will continue to pay another 9.6 trillion or 9.2 trillion, less by 361 billion. So those are you can read the table and see. Committee observations. Next financial year, the projected allocation for domestic areas is only Uganda shillings 200 billion. This falls short of the verified domestic areas by Auditor General, which according to the Auditor General's report were over 14.606 trillion. In 2024, of which Uganda shillings 8.312 trillion are reimbursement to Bank of Uganda, leaving 5.748 trillion for unpaid invoices, pension and gratuity. The committee was informed that Bank of Uganda areas are being cleared fully in the current financial year 24-25. The committee observed that some of these areas are generated as a result of Ministry of Finance failure to release resources for construction obligations that are partially paid, but so certificates remain pending, leading to accumulation of areas. So the accounting officers are not entirely to blame. The existence of areas is an indication that the financial system has gaps which allow commitments or obligations to be made without having sufficient funds set aside to honor those payments. This negatively impacts on the credibility of the budget. Colleagues, if a cow commits and is given the first payment and in the second quarter is not given the money, those are how areas come. He has already signed to get the goods. Good fiscal management and budget planning should prevent areas from being created. Therefore, governments should allocate additional resources to clear areas in the budget for financial year 25-26. This trend in domestic areas ought to be managed strategically to reduce the risk of increased government debt and crowding out the private sector. The committee recommends that government provides Uganda shillings 1.15 trillion during financial year 2025-26 and in the subsequent years until 2029-30. This will clear the outstanding bill of domestic areas of Ugandans of 5.7 trillion in 5 years. If we paid 1.1 trillion. If we can pay back of Uganda 8.9 trillion, let's pay these other ones also 1.15 trillion per year. The committee recommends that to avoid the further accumulation of areas, unpaid certificates should take the first call on budget releases by vote. The indicative program allocations for financial year 2024-25 in order to reduce the silo approach to implementation of government programs. And Mr. Speaker, as you guided us, we have put these things in programs. All the votes, we have put them together in programs. The financial priority has been given to the Human Capital Development Program in NDP 4, Governance and Security, and the Integrated Transport Infrastructure and Service Program, which will be taking a significant amount of the national budget, as shown in Table 8. Colleagues, on Table 8, you can see program allocations. Development planning implementation will take the biggest amount, which is 38.5%, and that's where we have payment to debt. The next one is human capital development, which is health and education, will take the biggest chunk of 17.4%. The next one is governance security at 13.1%. The fourth one is integrated transport infrastructure at 11.1%, and the rest follow in that releases. As you can see, agro-industrialization is going to take 2.9%, but we are saying this is our key growth sector. We need more money there. Committee observations. According to Section 9.3 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015, the budget framework paper shall be consistent with the NDP4. The table above provides comparisons of NDP4 budget allocations by program against proposed allocations per the budget framework paper 25-26. Out of the planned total public costing of 67.7 trillion for program interventions under NDP4, only 85% or shillings 57.41 trillion will be availed for implementation of government priorities next financial year, according to the BFP4 for 25-26. This indicates a shortfall of about 10.3 trillion Uganda shillings compared to the NDP4 projections. In addition, variations are evident in program allocations as provided in the table above. With the exception of digital transformation, sustainable balancing and housing, regional balanced development, and integrated transport infrastructure and services programs, all the other program allocations are way below those projections suggested by NDP4. And we think this must also be examined by the ministry and government. We therefore recommend that the second budget cycle and the subsequent completion of the budget estimates should take into consideration the ATMIS, the priority spending areas identified and approved by Parliament in the National Development Plan 4, so that we can be moving together as a country. Priorities and the indicative budget performance 25-26. The fundamentals of the economy are there. I want to go briefly. Agro-industrialization is key. Tourism development is key. The proposals are there. Mineral-based industrial development, including oil and gas, is there. They are outlined. The oil and gas details are there. Science and technology, those are the activities that government intends, what the kind of things government intends to do in those areas. That will inform the allocation of resources, the ATMIS. Committee observations. Committee recommends that the following priorities should be included as part of the budget framework paper. On agro-industrialization, Mr. Speaker, it is important to increase access to appropriate agricultural mechanization and farm power tools. Because to grow and increase production, there must be mechanization. Number 2, we must look at extension system in the country, especially specialized trainings, equip people, facilitate extension workers. Number 3, establish and operationalize appropriate post-harvest handling. Number 4, increase market access by establishing and maintaining appropriate market infrastructure, like developing and integrating the national coffee traceability models, the geospatial coffee registry, and especially funding to the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, which is actually the one which verifies our standards, does the testing, does the certification. If we don't fund and improve standards of products in this country, our agro-industrialization is going to be constrained. Someone can say it's going to be a challenge. Tourism, the outline is there of recommendations of the committee. On tax policy, Mr. Speaker, the committee observes that over the years, the domestic revenue mobilization efforts are being hindered by the lack of a national tax policy that would form the basis for tax legislation and administration. The committee was informed that the Cabinet Memorandum on a draft national tax policy was submitted to Cabinet for consideration. Our recommendation is that the national tax policy is expedited in order to inform the tax bills and proposals for the coming financial year 25-26. Colleagues, on part 2, Mr. Speaker, I think at this point I need to lay down the minutes, discussions with part 2. Mr. Speaker, all the discussions and minutes and documents, attachments, revisions, and all the budget, the reports from the different committees. The 15 sector committees are here.
The official signed report is here. This time round, Mr. Speaker, on the annexes, we have decided at this point, at this policy stage level, unlike in the previous time, not to restrict or to start crossing the propositions and suggestions from the committees. So we have decided to leave the recommendations of different committees in their entirety and make them an annex, the proposal of the committees, to government. So it is up to government, so that we don't constrain and stop a committee from making suggestions to government at this point. So we have lifted all the recommendations of different committees and attached them as an annex. So it is up to government to consider them. But in the discussion, yes?
Honorable Chair, can you formally lay? Because you're saying they are here, they are here. Just lay by reading the title.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the minutes, the reports of the different committees, or in the processing of the National Budget Framework for 2025-2026, I beg to lay.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the different sector committee observations and recommendations by program as Annex 1 to this National Budget paper. I beg to lay.
Thank you.
Accompanied by, I beg to lay the National Budget Framework, which was laid anyway to Parliament. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, in discussing, I have a few minutes to go through this. Committee key observations. I'll read them according to how the committees came to the Budget Committee. During deliberations with the sector committees, the Committee on Budget made the following key observations. Observations on the East African Community Affairs. The key concern there was that the budget did not cater for statutory obligations as reported for the East African Community contribution of 22 billion. So we are likely to be locked out of the East African community from talking and speaking because we don't have money for this coming financial year to give to the East African community. Number B, Committee on Education and Sports. The committee highlighted the following priority areas and suggestions to government. One, the issue of the new secondary school curriculum and A-level curriculum was a big concern, and the committee recommends that resources be put the new curriculum for our children. B, the staffing for universities. Our universities are performing at below 23% in terms of manpower. Government should look into the staffing for universities. C, on the infrastructure gaps for the most of the young universities, where in some universities they are constrained despite the growing numbers, they are lacking infrastructure. So government should focus on the staffing and infrastructure of universities. Number D, the biggest discussion and concern for the country and members of the different committees was there was need for resources to grant aid and rehabilitate many more primary schools across the country, especially where they are not, and especially the old schools. Number 5 on education. Colleagues, the enrollment and retention rate in our country, enrollment is stood at 70%. And because of that stagnation and the high school dropout, many children who drop out get married, so it increases high teenage pregnancy, it increases neonatal mortality, and it affects the health sectors. So the solution to the problems in health are actually in education. So the committee recommends that free and compulsory universal primary education be provided by government, and the committee recommends an amount of 390 billion. The details are in the report. Members are also concerned, the committee was concerned about the low investment in education and research, yet every country's development is hinged on the capital of its human resource. So the development funds for universities are not commensurate. The committee observed that the development funds for universities are not commensurate with the non-tax revenue they collect. This impacts on the services offered to the students who are the source of the non-tax revenue. The committee observed that there were no funds in the budget for financial year 25-26
to cater for the National Curriculum Development Center to implement the lower secondary school curriculum, as well as a transition to A-level curriculum. More so, given the fact that the first cohort of students under the new lower secondary school curriculum are due to join A-level in February 2025. And the funding gap in all this area was reported by the Committee on Education as being 12 billion. The committee was further concerned that the proposed abridged curriculum for A-level that is being developed in a hurry is bound to be inadequate because of lack of resources. Number 5, concerned that the budget did not cater for the conversion of the primary tiers colleges that were closed and earmarked conversion to other institutions. Number 6, there was also concern about the fate of Busoga and Bunyoro universities. They were informed that the two universities do not have votes, but are under vote 13, Ministry of Education and Sports. The committee undertook to convene a meeting with the members of parliament from Bunyoro and Busoga, the Committee on Education, to discuss, because the government said that they don't have, there are challenges pertaining to, especially to Bunyoro, where it is said they don't have land. On the Committee of Foreign Affairs, the biggest concern was that government has not prioritized subscription to international organizations. As a result, and on many occasions, Uganda has accumulated a lot of areas to these organizations, to the extent that Uganda's delegations to meetings often risk embarrassment or being denied opportunity to participate or talk at these meetings. And we know the recent incidences with this respect. Number 2, the members are also concerned about the criteria for determining missions to receive funding for commercial diplomacy monies and the benefits that accrue from the missions in economic terms. Number 3 is that government of Uganda should pursue also the issues of concerns of our embassies. Our embassy in Nairobi was burnt, whether it was adequate or not. An embassy, our house in Nairobi, and there were discussions. We were told there were discussions going to compensate. Now we have got another problem again. On tourism, trade and industry, the major issues here was the committee was, once government established Uganda's, the concern here was what is happening to Uganda's shareholdings in all projects that are funded under Uganda Development Corporation. What is the size of our equities, and why are we not getting dividends from these companies? It was also observed that apart from Housing Finance Bank, which paid 14.5 billion this year, all the state-owned enterprise and other entities where government has a stake have never paid us any dividends or declared them to us. It was observed that if this entity, the UDC, was supported, it could bring a positive change to our economy. There was concern about the Crown Ghana funding of Uganda National Bureau of Standards, and yet it is supported and is projected it generates over 100 billion in a year. Number 3, we recommend that government should prioritize the re-establishment of the cooperative bank. Biggest quarters there. The Committee on Public Service and Local Government, a major highlights to the government. The criteria for allocating PDM does not put into consideration the poor regions, populations, and other factors. There is need to re-examine this criteria in order to increase allocation to poor regions in the spirit of equity. We recommend that all districts affected by creation of new cities should be given 1 billion to build new headquarters. On presidential affairs, major issues, the committee was concerned about the criteria for selecting presidential pledges for implementation and asked for the list of pledges that will be fulfilled in this financial year. We are still waiting for that list to guide us in discussing the next budget. The committee noted that the government programs on skilling youth by His Excellency the President is a very good program, but most of the beneficiaries are too poor to acquire the necessary tools to practice the acquired skills after training. They recommend that government should needs to develop a mechanism of providing beneficiaries of the program with the tools to help them utilize the skills acquired. Number 3, the committee requested for the return on investment on projects under the Science, Technology and Innovation Secretariat. For example, the history of vaccines. What has happened to our vaccines? We invested a lot of money. And what is happening to the whole sector? The committee was concerned about the lack of funds for Kitesi landfill under KCCA. The committee observed that it's important for government to revive NUSA 4 project, as well as Dr. Deep for Northern Uganda. On Committee of Gender, Labor and Social Development, the major concerns here, and that's where the focus of the country should be, the committee was observed that it's important to have labor attaches to Ugandan foreign missions. The committee was, however, informed that some Ugandan missions abroad have labor attaches, but they are not facilitated. It was also observed that in the last budget, the committee was concerned that in the last budget, the president brought under the addendum, the president gave 34 billion to cultural leaders, and they were paid 60 million per month. But in the current budget, their emoluments have been reduced to 5 million per month, and the committee is concerned about this move. The committee recommends that this anomaly be corrected and rectified so that our cultural leaders get what they already started getting. The committee was concerned that the funds proposed to be allocated to the Ministry of Gender for election of special interest groups could be duplicated in funds allocated to the Electoral Commission. Mr. Speaker, I think government needs to look at the resources that are going to go to the coming elections. Ministry of Gender wants it, police wants it, everybody wants it. I think they need to have a strategy on who really should get the money and how that resource must be managed and how much it should be. There was also a concern on exodus of Ugandan girls to work abroad, and this should really be looked into and the ramifications therein. So, Speaker, on the committee of ICT, the concerns were there were the new vision. They were really the new vision, though operating as a business, was not paying dividends again. The committee reiterated its previous recommendation that NITAU should be charged with digitalization of all government institutions instead of spreading expensive digital units in different government institutions. Last year, Mr. Speaker, we recommended that there must be really synergies in government e-services, and that NITAU should be the overall thing to kind of handle this sector. The committee was informed that other government institutions were resistant to centralization of digital services. The committee asked the budget committee asked the committee to submit a list of entities that are resisting to be centralized and to work under NITAU, because this will create efficiency and avoid duplication. You saw the story of fight between the Bureau of Statistics, Electoral Commission on their tablets, which were the specifications. The committee was informed that NITAU license does not allow provision of services to the private sector. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, we have rolled out the national backbone infrastructure, and it's a very good infrastructure. But NITAU does not have a license to give those services so that the private sector can actually pay for those services. And I think we need to open up this space and generate revenue. The committee was concerned about Posta Uganda that did not meet statutory obligations like payment of NSSF and PAYE, and yet was paying wages. Sorry. Committee on Finance, Planning and Economic Development. The committee was concerned that government-owned business entities have not been declaring dividends. This was a running issue. 2, the committee asked the government commitments on the days when Uganda will start benefiting from oil revenue. 3, the committee concerned the different government bodies have different unit costs for procuring the same item. The committee called upon PPDA to come up with a national price list for common items. Mr. Speaker, we are told that for the last 5 years, PPDA has not come up with a national price list. You find now we are getting in the budget the work plans. Parliament budgets for a bottle of mineral water at 2,000 shillings. Another ministry at 6,000. Another one at 10,000. Another one at 12,000. So we are pricing the same item into different prices. Thank you. I was just saying thank you. So we are actually pricing corruption. If we don't have a national price list, we will be pricing corruption. If it's 2 million, if the same water here costs 2,000 a year, the next MDA is 6,000, another one 10,000. This is not new to Uganda. We had the story of Bank of Uganda buying pens at 385,000. So the national price list should come. The committee was concerned that government continues to pay commitment fees on loans that are not being utilized. You see, last year in the Auditor General report says that we paid about 73 billion on commitment fees alone when we need that money to pay other things. On legal and parliamentary affairs, the committee was concerned that whereas the judiciary is currently conducting sessions in different regions, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution is not facilitated to be present in all these the court sessions. The committee called on for joint planning for the two entities because none of them can work without the other. Facilitating one is not value for money. The committee also noted that the judiciary and DPP run different digital e-systems, yet their products are linked. The committee proposes that digitalization of the two entities should be centralized to save money. Number 3, the committee was concerned about the high failure rates at LDC. Number 5, the committee noted that the Human Rights Commission was advocating for a salary enhancement, and yet it is due for merging with the Equal Opportunities Commission, where their salary will be enhanced based on the salary of the Equal Opportunities Commission. The committee recommends that the Human Rights Commission should await for the implementation of the mergers of the RAPEX. Committee on Physical Infrastructure. The committee was concerned that government was planning to compensate individuals who knowingly encroach on land belonging to Uganda Railways Corporation. There is a request of 550 billion to compensate people from Tororogulu Railway. Now we were concerned, this is an old railway. And I'm told the government has a different opinion. The committee was concerned that there is a selective granting of contracts to former employees of UNRWA. They said that others are already working, others are not working. Number 3, the committee noted that the government was looking at Uganda Airlines purely as an infrastructure development, yet we also need to maximize the economic benefits thereof. For example, we need to deliberately find market for Ugandan cargo at the destinations where Uganda Airlines flies. Our airlines go different directions, but they don't carry cargo because we have not negotiated with the different countries that we bring cargo. The standards is an issue. The committee raised concern about foreigners operating Uganda Airlines. That was answered. The committee was concerned that there is paralysis on road projects that were being worked on by UNRWA and called upon government to expedite the process of settling the sector once and for all. That means we need to discuss the RAPEX for UNRWA as well. On agriculture, industry and fisheries, the committee called for the establishment of a clear seed strategy for Uganda. We have not come out clearly. Who is in charge of certification of seed, whether it's coffee, whether it is maize, whether it is beans for the country now? Now that on Operation Wealth Creation is not there, coffee has been something, cotton. What is the strategy for the seed strategy of the country? The committee also noted that all the areas of the country should be encouraged to grow perennial crops because they are better at creating wealth than the short-term crops. The committee was concerned of the fact that there is an increase in fish catches but a decline in fish exports. Government should look into that matter. The committee was concerned there are many unqualified people posing as extension workers. It's a big problem. The committee noted inconsistencies between the certificate of financial implication on the rationalization of entities and the budgets under consideration. Mr. Speaker, what is said under RAPEX as savings, in looking at the RAPEX, I think this matter will come in detail in the RAPEX paper. We have problems there. Committee on Defense and Internal Affairs. The committee was concerned that the Army was asking for funds to monitor elections, yet it's a mandate of Uganda Police. The committee recommends that the funds, they should harmonize, this situation should be harmonized. The committee was also concerned that Ministry of NBPF for 25-26 to the National Development Plan 4 and made the following observations. 1, the strategic direction and priorities of the budgetary framework paper are consistent with the NDP 4. That's the conclusion. The program budget allocations, however, of the BFP are significantly lower than those proposed in the NDP 4, and we have given the table of that of those details. This could imply that the planned interventions as per NDP 4 may not be fully executed in the first year, and hence undermine the achievements of the overall NDP 4 objectives and the tenfold growth strategy. Right, Honourable Speaker, NDP 4 says they need 92 trillion to implement this plan this coming financial year. But the national budget paper gives 57 trillion. That was where the variance is. And that's that point. Number 2, the budget paper budget prioritization for most programs are consistent with the NDP 4. And we give the table also. Number 3, the targets set in the budget framework paper are inconsistent with the targets in the NDP 4. And this could hinder effective monitoring, the implementation of NDP 4, and the annual budgets. And the committee recommendations is that 1, enhance revenue mobilization efforts to effectively implement the NDP 4 interventions. 2, the performance targets of the budget framework paper and NDP 4 should be harmonized, calibrated, in order to arrive at realistic targets. The details of the budget framework paper of NDP 4 versus the budget framework paper are in table 2. For example, in the NDP 4 agro-industrialization, NDP 4 had planned an estimate of 2.448 trillion, which is 3.6% of the overall budget of NDP 4. But in the budget framework paper, the figure there is 1.689 trillion this coming financial year, which is 2.9. So that's what we are talking about. The details are there. Gender and equity compliance, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, in fulfillment of the requirements of section 95 to 6A of the budget framework paper, that the national budget framework paper was generally compliant with the equity and gender requirements. And the details are in table 3. Page 14. The programs, the agro-industrialization and sustainable urbanization and housing performance performed at 40 and 20% respectively, which is below average compared to previous years. In some instances, the Equal Opportunities Commission noted that the late submission of budget framework papers by MDAs to the Equal Opportunities Commission affected timely assessment and production of assessment reports. The committee observation: there has been remarkable improvement since the last financial years. However, two programs did not satisfy the requirements. 2, no specific measures to equalize opportunities for men, women, persons with disabilities, and marginalized groups were provided alongside the gender certificate as presented to Parliament. Number 3, some MDAs did not possess adequate capacity to disaggregate data so that the assessment could be done. Committee recommendations. The committee recommends as follows. The program secretariats that do not submit the required program budget framework papers on time should be subjected to some form of sanctions as provided for in Section 78 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015. B, Equal Opportunities Commission is supported more to undertake periodic national gender and equity gap mapping surveys rather than doing it at the end of the financial year. C, more capacity building should be undertaken at all MDAs, especially with regard to the gender disaggregated data the data compilation, gender budgeting and assessment, and developing gender and equity performance indicators, among others. 2.8 on climate change. The observations are there, and the table is there, and the things. Generally, the certificate shows that only 6 programs on the assessment scored above 50%. This include natural resources, environment, and others. The contingencies fund, the observations are there, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. The committee recommends that the Minister of Finance always adheres to the law and replenishes the contingencies fund with required amounts. Parliament should follow up this matter to the logical conclusion during appropriation, because failure to adhere to this provision has been a major cause of supplementary budgets and supplementary requests that distort the approved budgets during budget implementation and execution. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, economic and budget performance highlights. Economic performance. Right Honorable Speaker and members, during the financial year 2022-24, Uganda's year-on-year real annual GDP was recorded at 6.1%. So the
procedure, Honorable Samba.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the first part of Chairperson's report, the committee report, Mr. Speaker, deals with the legalities and expectations of the law. We are at the early stages of the budgeting process at budget framework paper. Mr. Speaker, if at this level we don't mind the matters of law at this level, Mr. Speaker, then we are planning to ignore
What's
the
your
law
procedure matter, Honorable?
as usual. Would it need to be procedurally right, Mr. Speaker? We deal with these matters of the law. At least the minister answers that particular point. Why are we every year? Why are we not respecting the law? Then we proceed after getting explanations at that level. Then we are able to go into the others having respected the law. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable colleague. We shall be draining ourselves. Let's receive the whole report. When we open up for debate, the responses will be given. We shall get good guidance. When we start breaking in between, we shall be draining ourselves. So this is a big report, and we have enough time, the good thing, okay? The whole day we are on this report to debate thoroughly. That's why I insisted we must give it enough time. I don't want to limit you. So let's receive the report, and then we shall get the responses. If we find it does not meet the threshold, we refuse to approve. If we find it meets, we approve. Okay? Chair, resume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. The economic and budget performance highlights. 3.1 economic performance. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, during the financial year 2023-24, Uganda's year-on-year real annual GDP was recorded at 6.1%, up from 5.3% registered in the financial year 2022-2023. In nominal terms, the economy expanded by 144.19 billion shillings in 2022-23 to 153. Activities.
The agricultural, forestry, and fishing activities grew by 5.4% in 2023-24 compared to 4.5% in the previous financial year. In the current financial year, colleagues, the GDP for the first quarter grew by 6.7% compared to the growth of 5.6% registered in quarter one of the previous financial year. This on account of the 8.7% growth of the agricultural sector, 5.9% growth of industry, and 5.6% growth of the service sector. The committee observations, Mr. Speaker. The registered real GDP growth rate of 6.1% in the financial year 2023-24 was higher than the projected growth rate of 6.0%. So we achieved much better. Number two, not being fully realized as would have expected, but the contribution of the industrial sector to total GDP has fundamentally changed, averaging 26% from 2020-21 to 2022-23. This is so despite government injection of funds in UDB, in other financial institutions as part of the because of COVID's effect. Three, despite the observed improvement in GDP growth is still considerably non-inclusive, as income inequality, as measured by the Gini coefficient, has remained rather high and unchanged. So our committee recommends that with the focus that Uganda's GDP to expand by 27 trillion being hinged on the tenfold economic growth areas, it is important that this realism is checked by adequate resource allocation to match the agro-industrialization, tourism, manufacturing, those Artemis areas. So this intention can only be achieved with more resources to the Artemis areas. It's also important that for government to clarify on when exactly the commercial production of oil and gas is expected to commence, because it's a factor in the calculation of the tenfold growth and projections. Inflation, right, Honorable Speaker and members, the committee observations. Headline inflation and core inflation outturns of 3.2% and 3.0% respectively are in range of the projected headline inflation and core inflation of rates of 3.4 and 3.0 respectively. So we are comfortable there. Two, core inflation outturn of 3.0% is considerably lower than the policy target of 5%, and this is really commendable. We thank the managers of the fiscal space. Private sector credit. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, the growth in private sector credit has slowed down. The average growth in credit in the private sector was 7.7% in the financial year 2023-24, and it has come down from 9.9% in the financial year 22-23. This slowdown was primarily due to a decrease in the shilling-dominated lending, which grew by 9.6%, down from 12.1% in the previous fiscal year. Similarly, the average annual growth in foreign currency denominated loans declined to 3.2% from 4.7% in the previous year. Currently, other depository corporations' private sector credit growth has softened, reflecting the impact of increased government borrowing, probably crowding out the private sector, which constrained private sector access to credit. Committee observations. The slowdown in private sector credit could suggest a difficulty in looming economic uncertainties. It could also suggest that high lending rates, partly as a result of government's increased borrowing from the domestic sector, has led to high costs of doing business and has constrained the private sector to borrow from the same space. On external sector, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, Uganda's recorded overall balance of payments position deficit of US dollars 1,154.4 million is a deterioration from that of a US dollars 50.4 million recorded in 2022-23.
The deterioration was really attributed to the 8.2% expansion in the current account deficit to US dollars 4,174.7 million due to the deterioration in all its sub-accounts except the merchandise trade account. Foreign direct investment. FDI inflows in financial year 22-24 reached a record high of US dollars 3,034.11 million from coming up from $2,950.6 million recorded in financial year 22-23. FDI inflows have increased steadily year on year, largely reflecting the ongoing activity in the oil and gas sector and a positive business outlook for our country. International reserves. As at the end of June 2024, the stock of international reserves stood at $3,230.03 million. The reserve cover in future months of imports, excluding oil projected imports, was equivalent to 3 months. This is much lower than the 3.8 months of import cover recorded at the same time in the previous year. Committee observations. A sustained balance of payment deficit could spell economic challenges and vulnerabilities over the medium term if access to external financing isn't restrained amid low foreign exchange reserves. It is therefore paramount that the effective implementation of export promotion and import substitution strategies is key is prioritized over the medium term as a more sustainable way of building foreign reserves. The committee recommends that export promotion is prioritized and agencies such as Uganda Export Promotion Board, our diplomatic missions, and other related bodies are financed sufficiently in this budget in order to promote exports, in order to improve the balance of payment situation in the country, promote economic growth and employment. And this can only be achieved through strategies and interventions such as focusing on a few export sectors that can be coordinated effectively using the capacity and resources available to ensure successful implementation of the export strategy. 2, promote and spare development of the entire value chains for the proprietary export products. C, strengthen the institutions charged with the quality surveillance and monitoring, including with relation to manufacture, importation, distribution of agricultural and industrial products. Invest in public infrastructure necessary for quality assurance along the entire value chain for selected priority products. E, encourage through provision of appropriate incentives the private sector to invest in infrastructure necessary for quality assurance along the entire value chains for the selected priority products. Mr. Speaker, on public debt and colleagues, Uganda's public debt remains sustainable over the medium and long term. The ratio of public debt to GDP was 4.8% in financial year 2023-24. This is below the limit of the Charter for Fiscal Responsibility of 52.4%, and this is great. Committee observations. Though the debt levels as a percent of GDP has remained stable and at 46.9% in financial year 2023-24, up from 47.1% in 22-23, the domestic debt rose to 20.1% as a percentage of GDP in financial year 2022-23, up from 18.7% in financial year 2022-23. This is a growth of 17.6% of domestic debt, and I think that's the challenge. The sudden rapid growth in GDP, in debt over the last year was a bit worrying. We therefore recommend that government should gradually scale down on domestic borrowing because it's becoming unsustainable and is also negatively affecting private sector credit growth in the country and increasing the number of non-performing loans indirectly. 3.8 budget performance highlights. The revenue performance. During the financial year 2022-23, Uganda shillings 28,820.87 billion was realized in gross revenue and grants against a target of 32,751.2 billion, implying a performance of 88.0%. This implies that the overall deficit was registered at Uganda shillings 7,197.2 billion, equivalent to 3% of GDP, 3.5% of GDP. Expenditure performance. Total expenditure and net lending performed at 95.9%. Recurrent and development expenditure performed at 106.7 and 79.5% respectively. The committee observations. Effective implementation of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy does not seem to yield its desired objectives, as revenue to GDP still lingers in 13% to total GDP. A range for and in this range has been persistent for the last 3 years. So we might need to do some form of re-engineering there. 2, tax revenues as a percent of GDP are still very low and still below 13%, suggesting low tax collection efforts by URA, in addition to generous tax incentives and exemptions despite a low tax base, and this might be eroding the potential tax revenue that could be used to widen the fiscal space. 3.83 aggregate expenditure performance. At aggregate level, Uganda shillings 33,957.64 billion was released under both government and external finance funding during the financial year 23-24. This equates to 101% of the approved budget. Aggregate absorption was, however, 93.9%, which represents strong budget execution as at the end of the financial year. In regard to the government of Uganda budget of Uganda shillings 28,183.951 billion, which was released by the end of June 2024. This equates to 112.6% of the approved budget. Aggregate absorption was at 99.3%. So government of Uganda releases were way above the approved budget on account of supplementary expenditure, schedule number 1, which amounted to Uganda shillings 3.5 trillion shillings. Of this, 1.8 trillion was recurrent, 1.5 was development. The details are on the table. Wage expenditure, on wage, total wage releases performed at 7,434.5 billion. We performed on wage at 102%, which represents an absorption rate of 98.4%. Non-wage expenditure of the release was 13,928.8 billion, which equates 109.7% of the approved budget, and absorption of 100%. All this is explained because of the supplementary budget, which gave this over 100% performance in certain sectors. Development expenditure, total development releases were performed at 12,377.34 billion, 86% of the approved budget, and of this, 10,457.87 billion was spent, and which represents an absorption of 84%. Committee observations. We quote from some of the reports on Uganda from the World Bank. According to the World Bank, poor planning, the routine use of supplementary budgeting, even for wages and salaries, and weakness in overall public financial management have led to overspending, fiscal slippages, and a sustained accumulation of domestic arrears. In the financial year 2023-24, supplementary expenditures were financed partly by internal budget cuts, which hinder the budget and makes it difficult to achieve fiscal objectives. Supplementary spending continues to undermine the credibility of annual planning and budgeting, especially considering that activities for which these expenditures are made, which are foreseeable actually. In addition, supplementary budgeting heightens macroeconomic risks. The committee recommends that government should limit supplementary spending to only unavoidable expenditures, as the rest of these other expenditures tend to distort the budget and have continued to distort the budget. Mr. Speaker, that's a very strong point, and it is really shown in a lot of the figures. Financial performance at program level. Colleagues and honorable members, I led you to read financial performance by activities shown there on the table 6. Let's go to budget strategy, the budget strategy that we are going to implement. Page 27. Budget strategy for financial year 2025-26. Right, Honorable Speaker, financial year 2025-2026 National Budget Framework Paper is the first in the implementation of the NDP 4. The goal of NDP 4 is higher household incomes, full monetization of the economy, and employment for sustainable socio-economic transformation. The goal will be pursued under the theme of sustainable industrialization for inclusive growth, employment, and wealth creation. To concretize the gains so far achieved during the 4th National Development Plan, the NDP 3, in NDP 4, and in order to propel the economy of Uganda to higher levels of socio-economic transformation towards double digits, the theme for this coming financial resource budget will be maintained as full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. That's our theme for this coming financial year. The overall objective of 25-26 budget strategy is to strengthen economic growth drivers that underpin the restoration of the economy back to the medium-term growth path and directly contribute to the expansion of GDP tenfold from the current $53 billion to $500 billion by 2040, and double it to $100 billion by financial year 2029-2030. The budget strategy for next financial year is therefore based on the principles of tenfold growth strategy. The gains, the lessons learned, and the opportunities from NDP 3 as well as NDP 4 new strategic direction. This demonstrates continuity of the socio-economic agenda and transformation strategy. This strategy underscores employment creation, wealth creation, higher household incomes by prioritizing the key enablers for accelerated growth. Colleagues and other members, these are the 4.1 priority areas for the budget strategy. This year's budget strategy outlines 4 major key areas. One is agro-industrialization, with a focus on fully commercializing and formalizing farming as well as undertaking strategic value addition for export. Number 2 is tourism development, with a focus on increasing tourism arrivals by 5-fold under the current spend per tourist and length of stay strategy. Number 3, mineral-based industrial development, including oil and gas, with a focus on undertaking quantification of mapped mineral deposits and their governance regime and delivering of fast oil in this financial year. Number 5, science, technology, and innovation, with a focus on fast-tracking commercialization of ongoing innovations in the pathogen control and management for vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. The committee observed that the proposed budget framework paper allocations for financial year 25-26 to the above strategy, ATMIS, agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral-based economy, science, and technology, these anchor sectors are inconsistent with the above highlighted strategy. The allocations to all 4 ATMIS anchor sectors or their equivalents are projected to decline compared to the previous budget. In line with the above strategy, the allocation to these anchor programs should have increased but now here they are declining. Therefore, government should repurpose the resources in the national budget paper and improve allocative efficiency to refocus the resources on the above prioritized sectors of the economy, because they are not prioritized. In addition, government should strengthen the implementation mechanisms of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy and diversify public finance options by implementing the public investment financing strategy piece, including concessional and commercial loans,